The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Breaking news. We got breaking news, right? I told you guys on Friday. I told you guys on Thursday. I reiterated this on Saturday when we talked about this very topic of Kliff Kingsbury potentially becoming the offensive coordinator here, that the NFL doesn't want anybody stepping on the Super Bowl's toes. You saw that the Vegas Raiders made their offensive coordinator hire yesterday in Luke Getsy, right? Or was that this morning? Washington follows suit and gets it done with Kliff Kingsbury. Everything is getting done here before we get to Monday. And so I'm not surprised by this development. Once I saw the wheels in motion, kind of saw the writing on the wall that they were going to try to get all this stuff knocked out before Monday. Now, with that said, there are a number of things that I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I was going to save it for Monday morning. Regarding Kliff Kingsbury, I didn't know that he was going to be the OC by the time we got to Monday morning, but there were some things that I wanted to reiterate. And then there were a couple of things that were cleared up for me. So there were some questions that we had throughout the course of this week. What a week it was, okay? Sunday starts a new week. So last week was crazy, right? And Sunday is starting this week, and this week is starting off with a bang. We get the press conference tomorrow for Dan Quinn. I'm pretty sure you saw the tweet that the Washington Commanders social media team put out on both X, and then they put out a post on IG of Dan Quinn landing in Washington, dapping up Adam Peters, who he did not think was going to be there. He surprised him, meeting him coming off the plane with his wife. And he was like, man, I didn't expect you here. And you know, they embraced and all of that good stuff. So it begins, right? So I wanted to first go back a little bit in the time machine, then we'll come back full circle, get to where we are present day, talk about the hire, what it means, and get into all of the particulars and the specifics that we know as of right now. So I want to go back in time a bit because everything has cleared up for me now in terms of a timeline in the picture. It's so clear now. So remember when I tweeted out on Wednesday, it's either Anthony Weaver or Dan Quinn. What's taking so long? Make a decision, essentially, is what I tweeted out. Because we knew Ben Johnson wasn't in the mix. We knew Aaron Glenn wasn't going to be the head coach, right? We had already heard the two guys that had interviewed very well, and it was Anthony Weaver and it was Dan Quinn. And I made the video, you know, brace yourself, because all signs were pointing to Dan Quinn. We saw the picture of him leaving the airport or boarding the plane, about to get on a plane, leaving the airport, and it all makes sense now. Because remember, John Kahn put out the tweet on Wednesday morning that GM Adam Peters was heading to the Senior Bowl. And everything was done on Tuesday, right? All the interviews that they were going to conduct were done Tuesday. And so we were all sitting there like, what's going on then? If all this stuff is wrapped up, if he's going to Mobile, that means it's done. And a lot of you are, well, maybe he's waiting to interview someone from San Francisco or Kansas City staff. And I'm like, no, this is over with. It's done. They got their guy. And what I've realized now, and I think a lot of you have figured this out as well, is that they had already hired Dan Quinn. Quinn was behind the scenes trying to put his staff together. He was already in the process of interviewing candidates, because what we didn't know, and I found out directly after I posted the video to you guys about Kliff Kingsbury potentially being the head offensive coordinator here, rather, was that he had already interviewed with Dan Quinn. That's why Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and all of these guys, Albert Breer, and all of them could say that he was already at the top of the list. He had already interviewed. Well, there's no way he told the Raiders no, and simultaneously, 2 seconds later, he's already interviewed with Dan Quinn. He had already interviewed with Dan Quinn probably on Wednesday or Tuesday of last week. He had already interviewed with Dan Quinn. The minute Dan Quinn got the job here in Washington, the minute that they agreed, hey, you're our guy, he went out and he started interviewing candidates for this offensive coordinator position. Kliff Kingsbury, I don't think, was in a position necessarily to wait, right? And maybe Quinn had already interviewed him back when Quinn was waiting on the interview here. Because remember, we were supposed to interview Quinn the week prior. Some schedule snafus got in the way, and we had to push him back to the week where we were supposed to be interviewing the 2 Baltimore candidates and the 2 Detroit candidates. So maybe he had already interviewed him, but I'm thinking Kliff Kingsbury couldn't wait. Like, I can't wait to see if you get a job or not, because if I fool around, mess around with you, waiting on you to see if you get a job to go where you're going, which is Washington, you don't get the job, somebody takes the Raiders job, I'm out of a job. So if I want to get back into the NFL, which is my goal, I got to go ahead and take this Raiders gig. They get to the negotiation table with the Raiders. I think he gets cold feet because he's realizing that opportunity that I was kind of waiting on with Washington with Dan Quinn is available now. I really don't want this job because think about it from Kliff Kingsbury's standpoint. And I'm about to bring it back full circle to where we are right now. Kliff Kingsbury is a young guy. He likes working with young quarterbacks. He worked with Mahomes, right? He worked with Caleb Williams. He worked with Kyler Murray. Like, he's worked with younger quarterbacks. He's not a guy that you hand a veteran to and say, hey, go get him, Tiger. He likes working with younger quarterbacks, right? Because a lot of these younger quarterbacks are coming from spread offenses. They don't have to digest a ton. They understand how this works and how to operate within a spread offense. A lot of the veteran quarterbacks in the NFL are more equipped to deal with pro-style offenses. So when you're bringing some of that college influence in, a guy like Kliff Kingsbury makes a ton of sense, right? Because you're getting a younger quarterback. If you're Kliff Kingsbury, and now we're back to present day, if you're Kliff Kingsbury, and I'm going to tell y'all this right now, Kliff is not planning on staying here long. So this is the one drawback to hiring a guy like Kliff Kingsbury. Kliff Kingsbury does not view himself as an offensive coordinator. He views himself as a head coach, as he should, right? He's not looking to stay here for more than 2 years, okay? This is a stepping stone, nothing more than a mere stepping stone for him to get back to a head coaching position, and that's how he views this opportunity. And that's why he came here. Because if you go to Vegas, they're at the 13th pick. The chances of you getting your hands on a young quarterback, slim and none, not one that you want to work with. You might end up with a Bo Nix. And if I'm the Raiders, I'm not spending my 13th overall pick on a quarterback in this year's draft class. Sorry, not sorry. Maybe the second round, you get a Bo Nix or a Spencer Rattler or one of these guys that you may fall in love with. I'm not spending my first round pick on J.J. McCarthy. I mean, he might be a guy that somebody thinks could be a really good quarterback and decides to spend the 13th overall pick on. I'm not. And so at the end of the day, I think Kliff Kingsbury saw an opportunity with Washington having the number 2 overall pick. Whether they go up to 1 and get Williams or not, they're still going to end up with a quarterback that I think he's going to be excited to work with. And this is his opportunity to show what Eric Bieniemy failed to show last year, which is I can take a young quarterback, develop him, get him to play really good football, and I can do the same thing for your team if you give me an opportunity with your young rookie quarterback that you're about to go draft. That's the goal for Kliff Kingsbury, is to do exactly what we saw Bobby Slowick do in Houston, which is why Bobby Slowick almost got a job. And I'd venture to say that if Bobby Slowick the Houston Texans hadn't made the playoffs, he probably would have gotten a job. That's my guess. Now, he got eliminated by the time you could meet face to face with candidates, but teams had already gone through the process already. Had he not had to wait and he could have interviewed as soon as the season was over, I think Bobby Slowick probably ends up with a gig. But that's no here nor there because I think a lot of teams felt like I did. I told you, once is a fluke. Twice, you're a made man. Now you can go get a job. Okay? Anybody can do anything once. Do it again. And I think that's what everybody kind of said to Bobby Slowick. I don't think you're ready yet. Let's go back in the oven, let you cook for another season. And when we pull you back out of the oven, we think you might be ready to be a head coach. We'll see. So Kliff Kingsbury is going to come here, and he's going to get his opportunity to coach a rookie quarterback. And if he can take that rookie quarterback and make some beautiful music with that quarterback, he may be able to catapult himself in that next coaching cycle next year into a head coaching job. If teams are a little leery and they're a little skeptical and they're like, that was pretty good, but do it again, then he'll have to do it again. But being that he already has head coaching experience in the NFL and he's already proven that he can put together a quality NFL offense, the Cardinals made the playoffs in 2021. Remember, they were the last undefeated team before that season unraveled. If he can do it just once here in Washington with a rookie, he might get a job. So that's the drawback to hiring a guy like Kliff Kingsbury, but you can't worry about that. This is the problem when you hire a defensive-minded head coach, because then you have to worry about this whole dilemma about offensive coordinator. But we're not going to do that right now. We're not going to worry about that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I just wanted to throw that out there, that understand Kliff Kingsbury is not hanging around for a very long time. And I think the deal that he signed is further proof of that as we take a look at a couple of tweets that pretty much make, because, with a guy like Kliff Kingsbury, with what just happened with him in Vegas, we got to wait until this thing is official, right? Like, I was going to come on here and be like, hey, it is Kliff. He did just renege on the Raiders. So, like, we can't be going off of he's set to be. I need to know some shit has been signed. Like, we're done here. Well, we've gotten the confirmation that we need so we can move forward and not have egg on our face. So we'll start with Adam Schefter, who broke the news earlier this evening. Adam Schefter tweeted out, Commanders are hiring Kliff Kingsbury as their new offensive coordinator per league sources. He then went on to add, let the speculation begin. Kliff Kingsbury coached Caleb Williams last season. Williams was a standout quarterback at Gonzaga High School in Washington, D.C. The Commanders currently hold the number 2 overall pick and are in striking distance of the number 1 pick that belongs to Chicago. So there's going to be a lot of that. So I hope you're prepared, okay, mentally. And I tell y'all this every draft season, mentally prepare yourself for the different narratives that are going to be thrown at you as a fan. They're going to be coming at you more than ever before this offseason because we're entrenched in the hottest topic of discussion when it comes to this particular draft. We're right in the middle of this thing, okay? Now, Chicago can diffuse all of this. They can put this shit out if they want to by simply either telling everyone we're not trading the number 1 overall pick or by trading Kyler Murray. Either way, both of those actions, either one of them, signify they're drafting Caleb Williams. Now, if they do nothing, which is probably what's going to ultimately happen, they do nothing up until the draft. One can only assume that either on draft day, they're going to trade the pick, or on draft day, they're going to trade Justin Fields. I think I said Kyler Murray. Justin Fields. All right. So whatever the case may be, the Bears have all of the cards, right? They hold all the cards. They have all the chips. We're just essentially the team that's the closest. We make the most sense now with this Kliff Kingsbury hire. Everyone's going to try to connect the dots. I don't know how you can connect dots that don't exist because, again, we don't control anything. It'd be one thing if we had the number 1 overall pick. Now there's a real discussion to be had, if you ask me. But we got the number 2 pick, and the Bears, all they have to do is draft Caleb Williams. That's all they have to do. And I know you guys heard, and I talked about this yesterday when we were talking about Kliff Kingsbury, which is why I said disregard all the stuff you're going to hear, because people that in the know that were at the Senior Bowl said they left left Mobile feeling like the Bears were going to spend the #1 overall pick on Caleb Williams. And unless we hear something different coming out of Indy, where the combine will be, unless we hear something drastically different coming out of Indy, I assume that's what's going to happen. And having Caleb Williams have his people come out and say, we never said we weren't good with Chicago. We're fine with playing in Chicago. Once that comes out, again, unless something changes during this process that they don't like with this kid, that they talk to him, because they're going to get to talk to him in person here shortly, and they don't really like what they're hearing, unless something changes drastically, I can't see a scenario in which they don't take Caleb Williams. So at the end of the day, Kliff Kingsbury has nothing to do specifically with Washington getting their hands on Caleb Williams. That's where everyone's going to try to connect the dots. I just think Dan Quinn saw Kliff Kingsbury as an offensive guy that he really felt like could be successful with here in Washington, especially knowing that they were going to go out and draft a young quarterback at #2 overall, possibly #1, but #2 in particular. They can't worry about what anybody else is doing. They got to worry about themselves, and whether they move up or stay at 2, they're getting a quarterback. And they feel really good about what Kliff Kingsbury was able to do with Kyler Murray and with Patrick Mahomes, and even to a lesser degree, probably with Caleb Williams. And you can say what you want, and a lot of people are going to say, well, Caleb Williams struggled this year. Yeah, I wouldn't call what Caleb Williams did this year struggling. If you go watch, he didn't have as much talent around him. That's one. And two, they put up a lot of points, and their defense was just like at Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, really bad. You go look at a lot of those games. It wasn't that they lost those games scoring 17 or 23 or 24 points. They were scoring 30-something. I think in the Washington game, they scored 40-something and gave up 50-something and lost. So, again, I wouldn't necessarily say that he struggled, under the watchful eye of Kliff Kingsbury, but that's the narrative that some people are going to choose to run with, whatever the case may be. Kliff Kingsbury is here in Washington, and I think they're excited about the prospects of him coaching whomever they draft at #2. My money right now is on Jaden Daniels, but we'll see what happens. A lot of time, and this process is going to be long, and we're going to mull over this decision, and we're going to talk about this thing a million times over. We'll see what happens. Albert Breer, and this is speaking to the point that I was making earlier about Kliff Kingsbury ain't staying here long, folks. Whether he's good or he's bad, he's going to be gone very quickly. Okay, this is an in and out operation for Kliff Kingsbury. He sees this as an opportunity for him to get back to the head coaching ranks, and he's going to take the first shot that he gets. He is not Ben Johnson. Okay, there is no loyalty here. All right, the minute he gets an opportunity in a position where he thinks he can succeed, my man is gone. Just understand that. Albert Breer tweeted out, the Commanders and Kliff Kingsbury have agreed on terms on a 3-year deal to make the ex-Cardinals and Texas Tech head coach their offensive coordinator, sources say. This was pretty far down the road yesterday, but Washington wanted to complete its process with other candidates. And we saw a lot of names that I was like, yeah, right. Like some erroneous accounts, tweeted out we were meeting with the Eagles' former offensive coordinator. I was like, that's BS. But there were a lot of dudes that we met with that I was like, nah, I'm good on him. Don't do that. Don't do that. And it was several, right? But the good thing that put me at ease was that we were going outside the building. This was never an Eric Bieniemy thing. Never, right? From the moment Dan Quinn stepped foot in Washington to sit down and interview, it was an understanding that Eric Bieniemy wasn't going to be his offensive coordinator. And that's all I needed to know. And so here we are. Kliff Kingsbury. Boy, this happened quick. This happened very quickly. As Albert Breer just said, this was pretty far down the road yesterday, but the Super Bowl almost set an imaginary hard deadline. And they raced up and met it and got it done. And so we'll see what happens moving forward. But can't wait for the presser tomorrow for Dan Quinn. I think what's crazy is we haven't heard anything about the defensive coordinator, Joe Witt Jr. Is that a done deal or not? Like, I'm still waiting on confirmation. Nobody's actually come out and said, you see, we got all kinds of reports about Kliff Kingsbury because it's splashy. It's a wow pop type of hire because he's a former head coach in the NFL. Joe Witt Jr. comes with a lot less fanfare. Nobody knows this guy. But is he coming or not? That's a big hire. Is he coming to DC with him or not? I haven't seen anybody confirm that. Washington hasn't done it. I wonder if they're going to ask him these questions at the presser tomorrow. We haven't heard any of the big insiders confirm anything. I did see on SI.com that they said that Joe Witt Jr. was coming with him, but I'm not sure if I can trust that or not, right? I think he's coming with him, but that's a big hire, right? Anyway, I digress. I feel pretty good about this. I told you what my preference was. I really wanted one of the traditional under center, type of guys. But this is what Dan Quinn wanted, clearly. And I think this is Adam Peters giving way to what his head coach wants, which is what you should do as a GM. You hire the coach, then you move out of the way and you let him pick his staff. You don't meddle in that. You might have some input, but at the end of the day, this is the coach's opportunity to then use his connections to build his staff the way he wants it to look. The last time he was a head coach in the league, Dan Quinn hired Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan went on to have a big 2-year run in Atlanta. Or was it 3 years? It was 2 years, 15 and 16. And went to the Super Bowl in 16. Obviously, it didn't work out. Was up 28-3. We all know what happened. Kyle Shanahan then got the job the next year with San Francisco. And so the rest is history. Maybe it's another one of those situations where the first guy he hires is going to come in and do a tremendous job and take us to great heights. The question is, if Kliff Kingsbury is able to do that, then what? Because he's going to get a job. Again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'm excited about the hire. It means that Eric Bieniemy is not going to be here. And I wonder where he's going to end up landing. My guess is back in Kansas City. Just about every single offensive coordinator position has been filled already for the most part. So I can't see him going on as anybody's OC. Maybe somebody gives him an opportunity to be a running backs coach. That's what he was before. We'll see. Not our problem. Not our problem. He had an opportunity here. It didn't work out. And we'll see where he ends up. But now I think the next couple items that we'll see start to fall into place is the titles now, because I don't think Martin Mayhew's going anywhere. I don't think that Marty Herney's going anywhere. So what are the titles that they're going to give those guys? That's semantics. Neither one of them are the GM, so it doesn't really matter to me, but they're still going to be here, it looks like. But technically speaking, we have 2 GMs right now. Technically speaking, we have 2 offensive coordinators because they still haven't moved on from Eric Bieniemy. But again, he's not going to be here, right? And we know that Adam Peters is the GM here in Washington, not Martin Mayhew. So he'll have a new title, and we'll move on from there. I'm excited about this hire and what it could potentially be for this young quarterback and this offense. I'm excited for how he's going to use the weapons that we currently have. I'm excited for Brian Robinson because he really did some beautiful things with James Conner, and I think he could do the same thing, and those are similar backs in how they play. I really think Brian Robinson showed us he can catch the football. James Conner showed his ability to catch the football under Kliff Kingsbury, which you have to be able to do. And I thought that he showcased his ability to be so dynamic as a pass catcher. I didn't know James Conner could do those things until Kliff Kingsbury got his hands on him, and he showcased the ability to catch the football. And Kliff Kingsbury essentially turned him into a damn near star, right? I think he can do the same thing with Brian Robinson. So one thing's for sure, we're going to have to clean up this offensive line. If Kliff Kingsbury is going to be your offensive coordinator, we're going to have to clean up this offensive line. We're going to have to do it anyway. you're going to have to clean this shit up, buddy. You cannot go in here with a faulty-ass offensive line if you expect Kliff Kingsbury to get this shit done. All right? I can tell you that right now. Right now. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited about this move, however. Excited about the presser tomorrow. Excited about the direction that we're heading in. And I think we said this when Dan Quinn got the job, that he was going to be able to build an effective staff. I think we're seeing that right now. It's far from done. A lot more moves left to be made, clearly. But I think what we've seen now is that he is starting to build a really good staff, one that we can feel really good about going into this upcoming season. Again, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with free agency. We'll see what happens with the draft, right? Because the players that they give Kliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn and potentially Joe Witt Jr. to work with, and then these coaches that they ultimately hire, offensive line coach is the next biggest hire, if you ask me. If Joe Witt Jr. is already in the stable, right? If he's already on board and you got your offensive coordinator now, the next big hire is offensive line coach. Who's coming on board to be your offensive line coach? Because that's going to be huge, right? But at the end of the day, he's building a pretty good staff so far. So far, so good. Okay. Dodged the bullet with Chip Kelly, the chipster, moved on from Eric Bieniemy. Really excited about what's going on right now. And we've heard nothing but good things about Dan Quinn. You heard Michael Parsons and what he said at the Pro Bowl about Dan Quinn. Like, guys got to buy in, but if they buy in, this defense is going to take off. And he's like, y'all take care of my guy, DQ. We'll take good care of him. We got to get some talent, though. This ain't the defense that we had last year. I would have felt a lot better about him coming in here from a defensive standpoint if he would have inherited the defense that we had going into last season. But he's going to build it up. He's got a chance to build this thing up from scratch. We'll see what he does. All right, let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say. We are cursed by the gods. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I need to see it to believe it when it comes to his QB development and offensive play calling. Does he listen to his players and adjust? A ray of light from gods. Louie is gone. They show us favor. I've told you them. I had a conversation with the football gods last year. They said, hey, man, the black clouds are gone. You finna get some blessings here now. He said, look, you're going to have to take some lumps here. I'm not telling you this shit going to happen overnight. And he was right. But he said, I'm going to bless you. The Jets game last year, if that ain't the football gods, I don't know what is, okay? If how last year turned out, because honestly, I was a dum-dum, and I'm willing to admit this. I would have taken the Rivera and Jack Del Rio L for an 11-win season last year. I was willing to do that because I wanted Sam to succeed. But more importantly, I wanted to see this team win some damn games. And I was willing to, and a lot of y'all was like, no, bro, that's not what you want. Trust me. And it's easier to admit that now after the fact because I've already gone through it. But if you give me a chance to go into a season, I ain't trying to lose because that ain't how I'm built. That ain't how my mind works. So that's a tough, bitter pill to swallow that, hey, we got to be trash. That's tough for me to accept. But it was a necessary evil. We wouldn't have gotten here had Rivera won 10 or 11 games. We would have still been running on the hamster wheel, knowing good and well that Ron Rivera and company weren't the answer. Did y'all see? Shout out to my girl, Miss Perry, for holding it down like always. She sent me a little tweet from somebody that was transcribing what Doug Williams said on somebody's radio program. I think he was talking to Doc Walker. And he told Doc that the culture didn't change in Washington. Did you see a culture change? You know, the last regime kept talking about, hey, we changed the culture. He's like, they ain't changed nothing. First of all, changing the culture starts with winning. They ain't win nothing. And as we saw, the culture definitely didn't change because soon as guys like Montez Sweat and Chase Young left here, they pretty much said, hey, that culture there was trash. Montez said those dudes ain't playing for one another. They playing for themselves. They ready for the season to be over with. He didn't lie. We saw the effort from this team down the stretch. So I think this is a breath of fresh air. And I've heard nothing but good things about Dan Quinn and the environment that he's going to create here in Washington from people that have coached with him, played under him in past stops. I feel really good about what he's about to create here. Now it's about, can you create winning? Can you create winning? It starts with the environment, though. I think he's going to take care of that. Can you then take those good positive vibes and put it on the field and have it turn into wins? We'll see. And look, I'm not asking you to buy into anything. They got to show us. I don't think any fan should just blindly go into this thing thinking that Kliff Kingsbury is going to turn this offensive outfit into an automatic winner. We got to see it. We've been promised each of the last 3 years that this offense was going to be better. We thought Scott Turner in his last year was going to have this offense humming. We thought that Eric Bieniemy, I definitely fell for it hook, line, and sinker, that he was going to have it going in 2023. And now here we are again. Different regime, different set of circumstances, but we've been promised the same thing. It's going to be different this time. We still haven't averaged 20 points a game in like 5 years. Still waiting on that. Well, I know Kliff Kingsbury can deliver that if he gets what he needs out of the quarterback position. I know he can deliver that. But we'll see, right? Pit Fight Entertainment. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, strong leadership, shared vision, clear organizational structure. Are we in DC? Yeah, man. This is what happens when you get ownership that is legitimate. Don't let people lie to you. Don't let people tell you a story, sell you some kind of false narrative about Josh Harris because they don't like him as the 76ers owner. Oh, you guys are getting the trash owner. Okay, that's cool. I'd much rather deal with him than Dan Snyder. So whatever you're talking about, that shit in one ear, out the other. All I know is he's run stable organizations wherever he's gone. You might not like the results that you've been getting in Philadelphia with the 76ers. Doesn't mean he hasn't given you every resource that you've needed to win. Just hasn't worked out. That's all you can ever ask for from an owner is to provide you with everything that you need, allow people to do their jobs, put good people in places, right, in place to do their jobs, allow them to do their jobs, and give you all the resources that you need and step back. And that's what he does. And we're off to a great start. We're off to a great start. Feels a little different, doesn't it? Barrett Downing, been a member for 29 months. Who writes, good hire. I'm looking forward to seeing good things. And again, PMP, patience and perseverance. Understand that. And you know what's so funny? Is just 48 to maybe 72 hours ago, this fan base was going nuts. Off the rails, going crazy, losing their minds. For what? For what? Oh my God. You should have seen when they found out Dan Quinn was the hire. Oh my God. People were losing their minds. What changed in 3 days? Because I can tell you Thursday, when we had this same conversation on Thursday, it didn't feel like this. What changed? For some of you, you told me right out of the gate, I want to see who he hires as offensive coordinator. And that'll shape how I feel about this hire. And if you like Kliff Kingsbury, then now you feel good about the hire. Okay, I get that. But for some of you, you didn't care who they hired. This was a terrible hire. We're going to be back in the same, and you might still feel that way. Who knows? Journey Reed, thank you for your generosity, gifting a membership. Thank you for your membership and for being a member of the MOBB. Shout out to Journey Reed for your generosity. And speaking of generosity, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Jerome Foster. And there's another person too that somehow I lost that name, and I should have written it down. But Jerome Foster, thank you for your generosity for the super thanks. There was someone else who left a super thanks as well. I apologize. I'm going to go hunt you down, find out who you are, and I'm going to give you a shout out on one of these future upcoming videos. But Jerome Foster, thank you for your super thanks as well. Who's cooking? Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, is Kliff different from EB aside from the rage part? Also, they both butt heads with players. Draft and free agency will be the next keys. One splash type pickup in free agency, or just draft your ass off and fill holes. I'm hyped. He's vastly different from Eric Bieniemy because, again, he ran the football in Arizona. Now, again, a large chunk of that came from Kyler Murray. I'm not doubting that, but I also watched him take James Conner and turn him into a household name. Like, I thought James Conner's career was done when he left Pittsburgh. I'm not bullshitting you. And he went to Arizona, and he had a rebirth under Kliff Kingsbury. So if he could do that for James Conner, I really feel like Brian Robinson's in for a big season, coming up here shortly. So, and I'm going to tell you what, he did some really good things with DeAndre Hopkins out there. So I feel like Terry has a chance to really flourish. And there's a lot of talent here, man. There's a lot of talent here. So, like, a lot of people were down on his offense. Somebody called it the Eric Bieniemy effect. I really, truly believe that. So I'm excited. I'm really, truly excited. And yes, free agency, draft, all that shit's going to be important for sure. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Dave, for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, rolling with my Morristown High School alum DQ and Kliff Huxtable. We're going to see how it goes, man. I'm excited for Dan. I want to see how this presser goes tomorrow. He's going to be full of juice tomorrow. I mean, really excited. And you could see he's bubbling already. So I expect that energy to come off in that presser. A lot of people are going to be hyped after tomorrow. I can almost guarantee it right now. And I'm trying to decide. I think what we'll ultimately do tomorrow, and this is the video I was going to put out in the morning. I don't need to do it now. I can just put this video out. We could just talk about it tonight. How do y'all want to do the react to the press conference? I was just going to go live tomorrow night, and we were going to talk about everything, or we could just go live after the press conference, shortly after the press conference, and kind of have a instant react to the press conference. However you guys want to handle it, that's how we'll handle it. I'll let you guys decide in the comment section. Video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, I told you DQ and Kliff were incoming. Time stamped it for you on that Ben Johnson vid from a few days ago. Oh, no, I remember. I remember you talking about these two were coming. And I told you, I dismissed it because Kliff wasn't available at that moment. And so you must have had some kind of insight that nobody else had, because I you know how I am. I'm quick to dismiss stuff that doesn't make sense to me at the time. And that didn't make any sense. He was going to be a member of the Raiders staff at that time. So, again, you must have had some type of intuition or some kind of sixth sense or something that led you to believe that he would somehow shake free and make a beeline for Washington. I couldn't have predicted that. Lang Hughes, video channel, you funny as hell. Lang Hughes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, May ran the air raid in 2022, his best year, great fit. A lot of people don't realize that Phil Longo was the offensive coordinator at North Carolina when Sam was there and for Drake May in 2022. And so there is experience for Drake May. As a matter of fact, Drake May's first 2 years at Chapel Hill, if I'm not mistaken, 23 and or 22. No, let me see. Sam's last year was 2021. So he ran it 1 year at Chapel Hill, did Drake May. So he does have experience in this. Here's the difference. I don't think he's the type of athlete that you would want. He can run. He's not a slouch back there. He's similar to Sam. Like, Sam isn't a great athlete, but he's a good enough athlete. But I think if you're going to utilize the offense the way Kliff Kingsbury wants to, you need a runner back there, a guy that can really scoop. And I think that's where Jaden Daniels comes into play. So you're not wrong. Sam ran the air raid, a version of the air raid under Phil Longo. So did Drake May. So there is experience there for sure. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, I've been good, I think, but Kliff Kingsbury looks like a fraud and a con man. You're not wrong about that. Kliff Kingsbury, the look, his face is one of distrust. You know, I look at Kliff Kingsbury, I'm like, boy, you look like a shyster, right? You look like you ready to rip somebody off right now. Like you about to go cook up a dope-ass pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme right now, right? That said, he says, Jadeveon Clowney of coaches, but I'll crack another one open, stay sitting on the porch and watch to see what happens. Hashtag change my mind. No, you're not wrong about his look. I actually think he's a quality coach, though, offensively. Right? I wouldn't want him to be a head coach for my team, but offensively, I think he can dial up some good stuff, and we'll see what he's able to do here in Washington. But you're not wrong about his look. I've long thought about that. Anyway, I digress. Jaden Doffelmeyer, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you who watches. Writes, excuse me. I'm cautiously optimistic with these hires. Isn't Kliff's offense very similar to EB's offense schematically? Both air raid offenses, not a lot of under center runs. Yeah, I mean, they're very similar in terms of wanting to spread you out, a lot of empty sets, things of that nature. I think a lot of his runs are gun-based, yes. So there are a lot of similarities, but it's not the same in terms of play calling. Like you can have a similar scheme, but run and I think he did a better job of tailoring his run game to fit more of what you do in the NFL. A lot of duos up front, double teams, a lot of inside zone. Some power, right? There's a lot of variety in what he did in Arizona that I was a big fan of. And so I think you can replicate a lot of those things here in Washington. And there's more of a commitment to the run game. Eric Bieniemy, based off of what we saw last year and what the Chiefs do too, which is where Eric Bieniemy essentially got everything that he does, is from Andy Reid in Kansas City. The Chiefs will never be top 10 in rushing attempts. Never. It's just never who they'll ever be. He was top 10 rush offense, rushing attempts and rush offense in 2021 was Kliff Kingsbury. So he's capable, fully capable of running the football. And again, I'm aware that Kyler Murray and his rush attempts are factored into that, and that was a huge part of why he was so high. But again, take it for what it's worth. He still was handing the ball off to James Conner and some of the other backs there. Mostly James Conner, though. So take it for what it's worth. Mutib Khan, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Joe Witt hired. It's official. Okay. I haven't seen it anywhere, but people have made me feel like that's official. And I just wanted to make sure. I hadn't heard anything. Everything that I could find was from 3 days ago, which is when we first found out that, he was coming with Dan. And so I just needed to know, how legit is this? So that's good news because I really like Joe Witt. I think he's exactly the kind of disciplinarian that we need defensively to shake things up. We need a guy that's going to come in here, no nonsense, ruffle some feathers. He's a hard ass. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's a stickler for doing it the right way. And I really think he's going to come in and drop the hammer immediately, and then he may ease up as time progresses. But he's going to come in, and he's going to look to kick some ass right away. And I love it. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JP, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, this is a much better hire than Chip Kelly. Who is our QB will be a massive question mark. I'd be happy with either of the top 3 guys. I got to watch the film. Just off of an athletic profile, I'd be right now leaning towards Jaden Daniels. But I got to watch. And that's what I plan on doing this week, right? Really starting to dive in now that we got the coaching situation taken care of. I really think I can just dive in freely now and look and see. So, oh, look at that. Commanders are hiring Joe Witt Jr., Cowboys secondary coach, to be their defensive coordinator. Look at that. I guess the dominoes are just starting to fall now, right? So there we go. It's funny. I bring it up, ask and you shall receive. Boom. There it is. No, I don't have to wonder anymore. So now I feel even better about how things are going now that Joe Witt Jr. has officially come on board as the defensive coordinator. He's going to add a level of accountability that I think was lacking here in Washington for years on the defensive side of the football. You know, I really think he's going to hold these guys accountable. Dan Quinn is that energy, fiery guy that's going to get everybody charged up, and Witt's going, like, they describe those two in Dallas as fire and ice, right? Of course, you know, Dan Quinn was the fiery, energetic guy, and then Witt was the perfect balance of ice to that fire, right? So I love it. I love the hire. Love it, love it, love it. Quarterback is going to be huge. We already know that. But it's good to know that the type of staff, and they still got a long way to go in terms of filling out the staff, but the type of staff that they're putting together is going to give this team a chance to compete right away. Now, I don't expect a big season. I've already told you I'm expecting us to come out, have the growing pains that you have when you're rebuilding and turning a program around. But I do expect us to be competitive with this group that we're putting together. Monster, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Joe Witt Jr. now named DC. Yeah, I just saw it. I appreciate you, Monster, and everybody in the comment section for letting me know that Joe Witt Jr. was named defensive coordinator. And I told you I needed to know. I hadn't seen it anywhere, and then boom, asking you shall receive. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. LT writes, Kellen Moore greater than Kliff Kingsbury, and Caleb not better than Howe. Boy, that sounds like some hater shit, LT. I mean, you're supposed to roll with your offensive coordinator, so I'm not mad at that. You think Kellen Moore is better than Kliff Kingsbury, knock yourself out. I'm not going to argue with you. But Caleb not better than Howe. I mean, first of all, we are probably not getting Caleb Williams anyway, but that's crazy talk. But whatever. Whatever floats your boat, LT. RTS with Oscar Montiel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Caleb Williams to DC. That's all that anybody wants to talk about now with this hire of Kliff Kingsbury. People are trying to connect dots that I don't think are there quite yet. Again, unless the Bears open themselves up for business with the #1 overall pick, I don't understand how you could connect any dots to Washington, because they're drafting. Again, Caleb Williams is going #1 overall, period. No matter who drafts at 1, whether the Bears are there or somebody else comes up with Chicago, Caleb Williams is going #1 overall in this draft, period. There's no instance where the Bears stay at 1 and take Marvin Harrison Jr. or any other player. Caleb Williams is going #1 overall, period. End of discussion. So unless Washington is going up to 1, Caleb Williams isn't coming to Washington. We don't hold those cards. We're not in control of that situation. So I don't think this is a sign that Caleb Williams is in play for Washington at 1. That doesn't mean he won't be and that the Bears won't have a change of heart. But right now, all signs point to the Chicago Bears keeping the #1 overall pick and selecting Caleb Williams with that pick. So I'm not looking at it as, oh, we're getting Caleb Williams because we just got Kliff Kingsbury. That's not how I'm viewing this. Amario Delcit, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Appreciate you, Amario Delcit. Jay Hunter Lee, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jay Hunter Lee writes, Brother Lou, what's going on? I've always been a fan of Air Coryell. How similar is the air raid to Air Coryell? I wouldn't say the two are different. I wouldn't say they're the same. I'd say that you probably could say a lot of the air raid principles started with Air Coryell. So I would say that it's an ancestor. Maybe not that far away. I'd say maybe granddad, great grand, but definitely grand. Like Air Coryell started all this shit. They were the first real innovative offense to spread teams out, create mismatches, which is what the air raid is designed to do. Is to put as much speed on the field all at once, to spread you out, create one-on-one situations and mismatches, run a lot. Remember that shit we saw with Scott Turner? When we get an empty set, a lot of shallow crosses, things of that nature. That's what the air raid system is designed to do. Create a lot of mismatches. You're hoping to get man-to-man. A lot of teams nowadays don't play a lot of man-to-man against these kind of sets. They usually elect to play zone. And then in those instances, then you look to put linebackers and things of that nature in conflict, right? Now you're looking to put those high-low reads on defenders and make him wrong, whatever he decides to choose, right? Whatever the case may be. I think Air Coryell is probably like the grandfather of all of these spread offenses and, air raid attacks and things of that nature. I'd say that there's they're akin to each other. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for your generosity, gifting 5 memberships. First of all, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, my guy Chris. Really, truly do appreciate you as always. And thank you for your generosity, gifting 5 memberships. Lang Hughes, double up, thank you for doubling up. Who writes, disagree. Rappaport said on NFL Network that Kliff doesn't want to be a head coach anytime soon. Doesn't like leading a whole team, just wants to draw up plays. We'll see. We'll test that theory because he can say that right now. But I can tell you he went away from after. I can tell you the Cardinals situation was stressful for him. I do know that. You could see the stress on his face. And he went away. He went to an island as soon as he got fired, which, the man signed a 6-year extension after the 21 season when they made the playoffs and lost to the Rams, the eventual Super Bowl champions. He signed a 6-year extension, then got fired the next year after the season. So he wasn't hurting. He's not hurting for money. He's still getting paid by the Arizona Cardinals. But I think he's going to be looking for a head coaching gig. But he can say right now, oh, no, I'm good. I'm not even thinking about a head coaching gig. We'll see about that. But, hey, he's here. I'm going to just enjoy him while he's here. I'm going to just enjoy it. Because when you've been a college coach, that's what you do, right? You can't tell a kid. You can't sit in a kid's house talking to his mom and say, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm recruiting your son, but I might not be here next year. You can't tell him that, right? What do you say? Hey, look, your kid is awesome. We're going to take good care of him, and he's going to have a chance to play. And as long as I'm there and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, your kid is going to have an excellent opportunity to make it to the next level because I'm going to make sure that I do everything in my power. That's what you say, right? And then the next year when that next job comes, you take that bitch. So, yeah, I believe him now. But, yeah, we'll see what happens next year and the year after that if he's successful here in Washington. The Real Benjamin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. The Real Benjamin writes, I'm just glad we won't be drafting May with Kliff's scheme. Well, that's not a guarantee that we won't be drafting Drake May. We don't know who the hell they're drafting. But, again, his scheme to me more so fits a Jaden, even more so than Caleb Williams, to be honest with you. But to me, it more so fits Jaden Daniels because of his ability to run. I think Jaden Daniels is an even better athlete from a running standpoint than that of Caleb Williams. So we'll see. You know, we don't know. They could be eyeballing Drake May. We have no idea. Waleed Ashraf, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Waleed writes, "Hey Lou, what's up, Waleed? What do you think about Witt as the defensive coordinator and the staff as a whole up until now?" I love it. I talked about Joe Witt Jr. on the Dan Quinn video that we did Thursday night. Joe Witt Jr. was reported Thursday night that he was coming along with Dan Quinn. So we spent a huge chunk of that stream that night. I think it was entitled "Dan Quinn is the head coach of the Washington Commanders. Who is he bringing with him?" And Joe Witt Jr. was one of the people that I had on the thumbnail. And we talked about him and what he potentially brings to the table and how I would love to have brought, a couple more Cowboys coaches along with him. But he was the one that I was targeting the most. He was the guy that I really looked at and said, he's ready for an opportunity to be a play caller in this league. He's put in his work. He's put in his time. He's a teacher. I think the thing that I'm looking forward to the most with Joe Witt Jr., this guy's a teacher. He was in Green Bay forever as a defensive backs coach. And they had some really good DBs come out of Green Bay over the years. And he had his hand in that. And he went to he came from Atlanta with Dan Quinn his last year that he was there in 2020. And then when Quinn got fired, he went with Quinn to Dallas when Quinn got hired in 2021. So this guy's a teacher. And we've seen how the Cowboys defensive backs have grown under his tutelage. I've talked about some of the safeties that he's kind of gotten out of the trash heap or the scrap heap and turned them back into really good safeties in this league. Jaron Curse is a name. Malik Hooker is another one that sticks out like a sore thumb. And Donovan Wilson, I mean, they just gave him a contract extension. He's a really good football player. And then you look at the corners, right? We all know about Deron Bland and what he's done his first 2 years in the league. Look at Trayvon Diggs and the growth there. They got another corner that they drafted. Shucks, I always forget his name. Number 3 for Dallas. He's really good too. Like that's not an accident. These guys aren't first round picks, right? None of these guys are first round picks, except for Malik Hooker. None of these guys are first round picks, but they're getting first round production out of them. And I think that speaks volumes to the coaching that they're getting. So I'm excited about Joe Witt Jr. I really am. Because we got guys that need to be coached up. We got talent. We never said our secondary was void of talent. We just felt like they were void of quality coaching. Well, that's about to change. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy Chris, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Really appreciate you. Who writes, "Hey Lou, what's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the fam. Likewise, as always. 2 questions. How do you see Kingsbury using Terry and Jahan as a part of the air raid, using 10 personnel to maximize their talents, and why? And how do you see the power run game with Robinson being done and why?" So I definitely see a situation where you're going to have, it may not be 10 personnel. It could be. A lot of people assume that it's 10 personnel, but a lot of times it's 11, right? A lot of times you're going to have a tight end. If he doesn't have a tight end, like his first year in Arizona, it was a lot of 10 personnel because they didn't love their tight ends. It was Max Williams and a bunch of dudes that he didn't really trust throwing the football to. That next year, they went out and got Zach Ertz, and it turned into a lot of 11 personnel, right? So I think you're going to see a lot of 11 if they get themselves a stud tight end that they feel good about. If they don't, you could see a lot of 10 personnel. Regardless of whatever it is, you're going to see them spread teams out. You're going to see them look to hunt out individual matchups. You're going to see them get the ball. And this is another staple, something that we missed. The air raid, you think about a whole bunch of a lot of deep passes and things. The air raid is predicated on getting the ball out of your quarterback's hands very quickly. So you're going to see a lot of short passes. It's funny, it's called the air raid, but because everything is through the air, but a lot of the ball isn't traveling very far in the air a lot of times in this offense. I mean, there are going to be opportunities to take shots if you get the ground game going and things of that nature. But a lot of it is ball coming out quick, underneath, short, quick passes, getting the ball into the hands of your playmakers and allowing them to operate in space. I think you're going to see Terry and Jahan do really well in this offense. I just think back to Terry's first year with Scott Turner and some of those early games, like the Arizona game early in that season, Ron's first year, and some of the stuff Terry was able to get to, some shallow crosses for big yards, a slant in that game for a big catch and run. He had a catch down the sidelines that was beautiful late in that game when it was pretty much decided. And I think about some of those are some air raid type qualities and principles that I think you're going to see. And I think Terry excels at stuff because remember, Ryan Day's offense is pretty much air raid attack, when they spread you out, right? Run a lot of those shallow crosses and things of that nature. And that's where Terry came from at Ohio State. So he's very, very comfortable doing that. Now, Jahan, on the other hand, I don't think he's ever been, I can't say what his high school offense was. He's never really been in an offensive attack like this before, not in college at least, and not in the NFL. Scott Turner's might be the closest thing to it that he's been in, but I think he's going to be just fine. I got no doubts about it. This is going to really help him get involved because he's going to utilize Jahan's talents. We won't have to worry about, damn, Jahan, hasn't been targeted in 2 weeks, which is, I'm exaggerating, but we would go weeks without Jahan even being an impact player. Shit, we'd go a month without Jahan having a 3-catch game, it felt like at times. But I expect them to be huge. But I expected them to be huge last year, so we'll see. I got more and more confidence in Kliff Kingsbury's ability because I've seen him do it before at the NFL level. I never saw Eric Bieniemy. You can say whatever you want about Bieniemy being a play caller, but we know it was Andy Reid. Clearly, it was Andy Reid. But we'll see, right? I like Jahan and Terry. I haven't lost any confidence in either one of those dudes. And I think they'll fit very well in this scheme. As for Brian Robinson, I think he's the biggest winner in all of this because I already told you what Kliff Kingsbury did for James Conner's career. I mean, Conner's career, I felt like, I won't say, I might have been a little bit aggressive in saying that it was on life support, but it felt like it when he left Pittsburgh. The Steelers appreciated him. Mike Tomlin loved him. I didn't love James Conner in Pittsburgh. I didn't love him at all. He went to Arizona. I got a whole new level of respect for James Conner. Love me some James Conner now. A healthy James Conner is a dangerous James Conner. And the person that exposed me to James Conner in that light was Kliff Kingsbury. So they're going to run the football. And, you hear air raid and you're thinking outside, outside zone, tosses, things on the perimeter. No, they want to slam that bitch up inside. He wants to get that thing up to the line of scrimmage as quick as possible. And I think B-Rob is a guy that likes to hit it downhill. Personally, I like, B-Rob in a traditional set where you're under center and he gets to, read his blocks as he's approaching the line of scrimmage and not getting the ball at a standstill out of a gun, handoff, so to speak. I like him coming downhill or running his track to get the ball, not, taking a shuffle step, taking a football and then trying to decide where he's going to go. He's not that type of runner, if you ask me. But I think he's going to be able to do some good things in this particular offense. I really do. Because there are power run game elements to this air raid attack. He adjusted it to fit, again, NFL and the defenses that he saw. And I think he did a really good job of that. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited. I'll tell you that much. Thank you once again for the super chat and the generosity, Chris McLaughlin. DC Community Carrot. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Caleb or Jaden are high probable long-term QB winners. as a lifelong fan, we moving on up. George Jefferson voice. Hashtag this trash can got a steak. Hashtag LTN. I'm going to tell you what. All of these steps are positive steps in the right direction, but it don't mean a thing until we start winning something, right? But these are necessary steps. Like, there's going to be a crowd out there that's like, yo, I'm not getting excited about nothing until we win. And that's fine. But to me, you got to make the right steps that lead you towards winning first. You got to make the right hires. You got to put yourself in the right positions. This is when you lay the foundation for winning right here, right now, right? In the offseason. This is when you lay the foundation for what's to come. If you don't do this right, then you're essentially functioning on a house of cards because it's an unstable foundation and you got nothing underneath you to keep you rock solid. So I really think this right here, what we're doing, building this thing the right way, brick by brick, creating a stable foundation, this is what's going to ultimately lead, hopefully, which we hope, to wins in the future. Maybe not in year one, not the way we would like, but I think if they do this the right way, and this free agency and the draft is, this first draft and free agency is going to go a long way in determining that. We set the foundation the right way. I think there's a chance that year two, I was always thinking year three. Year two could be the year, right? So we'll see. J.2626. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being, thank you for your generosity. Really, truly do appreciate you, J.2626. Thank you so much for the generosity. J.2626 writes, we are going to the NFC Championship game in 2 years. Book it. And so I that's aggressive for me, but that's what he did in Atlanta with Kyle Shanahan as his offensive coordinator. And I'm just going to tell you, the foundation that they're setting right now, we don't have Matt Ryan. So I can't say that this is just like Atlanta, right? Because they already had an established quarterback that was ready to go right out of the packaging. As soon as he got there, he knew he had a veteran he could win with. They had offensive pieces, right? They were ready to go. He just needed to tighten up some of the things on the defensive side. But that's not what we got here. This is a work in progress. So that might be a bit aggressive. But I just told you that with the foundation that we're laying, if things go the way that we want them to go via the draft and free agency, and we start to see that translate over to the field in year one, I wouldn't be shocked if year two we making some noise. I've always felt like year three was when I was really going to start putting pressure to this particular regime right here, this Dan Quinn regime, and start saying, hey, what's up? What we looking like? It could be year two. We could be, and again, I won't be over aggressive, but year two could be the year where I'm starting to look at them sort of like with Rivera. For some of y'all, not me. I didn't think we were good after that first year, but a lot of people moved the timeline up because we won the division, even though it was a 7-9 division winner. I think you could essentially see the timeline moved up potentially if this first year is way more successful than we go into the season thinking. If they come out of this thing 8-9, when we were thinking 5 or 6 wins, and you get 8-9, or you go 9-8 and just miss the playoffs, we might be moving this timeline up a bit, right? Who knows? We'll see. But you say NFC Championship in year two, book it. That's aggressive. That's really aggressive for a team that doesn't even have a quarterback yet. That's pretty aggressive, but I love it. I love it. I love it. Really appreciate you, J.2626. Thank you for your generosity and the super chat. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. King of the Bluegrass writes, Quinn likes speed and an attacking defense. Kliff Kingsbury runs a spread with lots of speed and quick striking offense. Pretty sure I see what they are trying to do here, bringing back the greatest show on turf 2024 version. I just know that the best teams in the league have speed on both sides of the football. I just know that. You look around, look at the 49ers, they got speed on both sides of the football, right? You look at the Chiefs, they got speed on both sides of the football. You look at the Bills, they got speed on both sides. You look at the Ravens, they got speed on both sides. I mean, we can go on and on. We can go down the list, right? The best teams have speed on both sides of the football. You got to be able to run in today's NFL. And while I thought we were starting to make strides in that department, we took a massive step backwards when we started unloading some of those defensive players. And, Logan Thomas is a guy that just flat out can't run. Our tight end position, we were stuck in the 90s at the tight end position. With no Amani Rodgers, we looked like a 1998 tight end group. We might as well have had Algie Crumpler and James and Kowalski, and even though Algie was probably faster than Logan Thomas, but we definitely need to upgrade the tight end position. We need more speed offensively. I've talked about this. We need a speed back. I think we still lack a true game-changing, fear-inducing speed wide receiver. Like Terry can run, Diami can run, Jahan can run, but I don't think people are truly frightened by their speed. Like a Deshaun Jackson or a like Jamison Williams for the Lions. Like one of those dudes who just they get up on you so quick, and next thing you know, they right by you. Like I don't even want to throw Tyreek Hill in there because that's not fair. He's a one of a kind dude. But you want a guy like remember the Texans had a receiver out of Notre Dame, Will Fuller V. Y'all remember him? To me, he was one of the best deep threat receivers in the league when he was healthy. Because Will would get on you so quick, and next thing you know, Will was by you by 2-3 steps. And his biggest issue was he just couldn't stay healthy. But I want to do it like that. If that guy exists, I'd love to get one of those dudes. We'll see what happens. One thing's for sure, we're looking to create an environment where speed is it's a requisite to be on this roster. It needs to be. We got to get faster, both sides of the football. Slinging Salvi, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Waddle, yeah, Red Wings 01. I see he put Waddle. Waddle is a great example of that. Another dude that'll just run right by you. Period. We need one of them type dudes. They don't grow on trees now, and like a Waddle, you got to spend a first round pick on a dude like that. Jamison Williams, you got to spend the first round. Will Fuller the fifth, first round pick. Like those type of dudes, you generally got to spend the first round pick on them. It'd be nice to find a guy in like the fourth round that can just flat out run. That'd be nice. Sling and Salvi writes, Joe Witt already confirmed tonight. Yeah, I saw that. I appreciate that, Sling and Salvi. That's music to my ears, puts me at ease because I hadn't heard anything, and it's been 3 days now. It's funny because this Kliff Kingsbury, they've been covering this thing. They've been all over it. Nothing about my guy, Joe Witt Jr. Nothing. Good to see that they finally confirmed that. You, Matan, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Dabo offense is greater than Kliff's OC wise. Y'all still miles away. So Dabo as an OC was excellent with Josh Allen, but he showed me something in that first year with Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones was able to find a way to maneuver, do what he needed to do. They used his athleticism and whatnot his first year, and they made it to the playoffs. And I thought the best game I've ever seen Daniel Jones play was in that playoff game against the Vikings. He was outstanding. They won. But he looked pedestrian last year, did Brian Daboll. And you could argue injuries, this, that, and the third, but it didn't look good. But we'll see, I still think Dabo is talented and he's a good play caller. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Jonathan Martinez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jonathan writes, good for you guys. You guys are going to draft Caleb and making the playoffs. I'm calling it from a Raiders fan. I don't think we're getting Caleb. A lot of people want to draw that conclusion from this move and assume because he was at USC last year as an offensive consultant and really spent a lot of time with Caleb last year that he's going to be the coach for Caleb this year, right? That to me is I think that's a lazy narrative. It's easy, it's fun, and in a season where there's not a lot to talk about, that's an easy one that you can go to and recycle it a million times, and people will never get enough of it if they want Caleb Williams here in Washington. You can recycle, repackage that same article 50 million times, reword it 90 different ways, and I think the same person will eat it up every single time if that's what they want. But again, we don't hold any of the power in this situation. So we'll see ultimately what happens. But again, I can't stress this enough. If the Bears decide that they want to hold on to the number one overall pick, then it's a moot point. It's a dead issue. But we'll see what happens. Joe Rockhead, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Joe Rockhead writes, what's the difference between Turner's and Kliff Kingsbury's version of the air raid, and what do we need to execute it? Well, to me, the biggest difference would be remember, I didn't have a problem with Scott Turner's offense. A lot of you did. I didn't. Guys were open. We watched the film, and we would sit down, and I would sit with the mob, and I would tell you, guys are open. We really sucked at the quarterback position, which is why I thought Scott Turner's offense would come to life with Taylor Heineke, because Heineke knew the offense. Now, he has limitations, and we saw that play itself out, and we knew that those limitations were going to hold the offense back, but I still expected more production. And what I saw that year with a quarterback who could run his scheme and his offense and get the ball out on time, what I still saw was a lack of situational awareness. That was my biggest, if you remember what my biggest complaint was. It wasn't that Scott Turner sucked as an offensive coordinator. EB sucked as an offensive coordinator. There was a difference. EP couldn't even put together a game plan that looked like it even had legs to it. Like, we looked unprepared week after week, most weeks going into games. We looked like we didn't know what the hell the opposition was going to throw at us. He was just calling random shit off of his play sheet. That's what it looked like. With Scott Turner, it looked like a professional outfit. It just seemed like the shit was repetitive. We ran the same stuff over and over again, and he didn't dress it up to make it look like anything different. If you're going to run the same shit, a lot of teams run the same shit over and over again. It's just, how do you present it? You can run the same exact concept, but make it look different. Get to it in a different way. Run it out of a different formation, out of a different set. Motion to it. Do different shifts and things to get to the same thing. But he didn't do that. We ran the same high-low concepts, same shallow, mesh concepts. And you're like, bro, you got to switch this shit up. And then, of course, he lacked situational awareness. We were horrible in the red zone. We were horrible in short yardage situations. Again, another dude that just really didn't run the game. We didn't have any play action fake because he really didn't get under center at all. There was a lot of things that he just frankly didn't do well that the Cardinals didn't have issues with, because if you can run the ball, you alleviate a lot of the stress of your red zone efficiency, right? If you can run it, which they ran it very well in the red zone under Kliff Kingsbury. I'm not saying they were the best red zone team in the league, but they didn't have the issues that we had under Scott Turner, in the red zone. So I think that there are a lot of things that we can see right away that'll be different from when Scott Turner was running this offense. There's going to be more of a dedication to the run, something that Scott Turner really didn't do. There were certain games where Scott Turner said, all right, we're going to run it, and we ran it effectively, but he never stuck with it. There wasn't that stick-to-itiveness that you'll get with Kliff Kingsbury. He'll continue to run the football. If there's success, Kliff will run it, right? There was always a reluctance with Scott Turner to run the quarterback, use the quarterback as an extension of the run game. Kliff won't hesitate to have the quarterback be a part of the run game, right? So that's another difference. And then I really think that you'll see, I hope, and I can't confirm this now, but I think you're going to see more situational awareness. I never felt like watching the Cardinals that situationally they weren't prepared or that they didn't have a handle on what was going on. There may have been a lack of execution, but I never felt like they were ill prepared for situations. But we'll see. We'll see. We're going to have to beef up the offensive line to run this scheme, though. We're going to have to beef up the offensive line. And I think you're going to have to go get a tight end. You're going to have to go get a tight end. I still like Amani Rodgers, but you're going to have to go get a tight end. Rail Goated. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I don't know, Lou. Ian Rappaport said Kliff ain't really looking for a head coach gig. He just wants to call offense. We're going to see, though. And that's what Lang Hughes brought up earlier, that they disagreed with what I said, that he wasn't out of here. That sounds good right now. And I'm telling you, the whole Kliff retreating to some crazy island in the, that we didn't even know of after he got fired. Like, he just went away from football. Like, he didn't even want to worry about ball for a year. He just like, I'm out. He was stressed. And I think that might have been like a bit of a wake-up call that this shit ain't as easy as I thought it was going to be. However, you say that, and then you sign a 3-year deal, and guys like him, they long for control, being in charge. Now, I'll say this. If you really just want to have fun, he learned the hard way. Coaching ain't fun. If you win, it is. But being a head coach, that shit ain't fun. I told you, being a head coach, you wear a lot of hats and you're in control of a lot of shit. And it's not as fun, right? It's not as fun. Being a coordinator is like being a substitute teacher. That shit is fun. Everybody likes the coordinator. He's the fun guy, right? So he might just want to call offense and have some fun, call some plays, right? That's cool. But again, he'll get that itch. And if he has success and people start, hitting him up, hitting his line and saying, hey, bro, you on to something here. We'd like to see if you learned from your first experience. I find it hard to believe that he won't jump at an opportunity. We'll see. I could be wrong and you guys could be right. And Ian Rappaport could have accurate information. I just don't see Kliff Kingsbury as a dude that's like, yeah, I'm going to be a coordinator for the next 7 years. I just don't see that. I see Kliff Kingsbury, if he kills it in the first 2 years here in Washington, parlaying that into a job. That's what I see. But we'll see. We'll see. It's early. So anything sounds good right now. A lot changes with success. A lot changes. Robert Ramsey. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Robert Ramsey writes, first time super. Thank you and welcome aboard. But I digress. I like that. Navy Ramjet joining the mob tomorrow. I like where we are, what we are doing so far. Witt just hired too, by the way. Looking forward to it, Robert. Looking forward to it. And I enjoyed you playing in the LTN exclusives, winners and losers in particular, but you were in all of the exclusives this year. So shout out to you, Navy Ramjet. Had a lot of fun doing it. You actually did a really good job this year as well, making selections. I don't think you made it to the finish line, though. I don't know what happened, but I'm glad to hear from you and that everything's okay, because I got a little worried because I don't think you made it to the finish line. But nonetheless, good to hear from you. And I like what we're doing, too, so far. And, yes, Joe Witt Jr., is the defensive coordinator, and I'm excited about that as well. Video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Going to collectively drag EB to DCA. On a one-way flight to Thailand. Look, man, I told you I don't have any animosity towards EB. He just could not be the offensive coordinator here, you know. With that said, I'm all ears. But he just couldn't be here. That was it. That was my only prerequisite to whoever was coming here, is that Eric Bieniemy couldn't be the offensive coordinator here. I'm good with anything else. Even if I disagree, I'll let it rock. Couldn't let it rock with EB again. That was it. But I ain't trying to send a man on a one-way flight to Thailand, though. You funny. Henry Aspinwall. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Henry writes, Lou, Sweat was spot on the lack of several with no work ethic. If Chase Young, perfect example, 49ers pissed and totally dissatisfied Gerald thing. I can tell you this. We watched that 49ers game, and I'm going to tell you, so there were fans that complained about Chase's motor. I never saw that here. Not to that level, right? Like that was some crazy shit we watched in the NFC Championship game. Like Chase's lack of hustle was on full display. And like you wouldn't have gotten me to vouch for that. Like if you would have asked me, what are you getting? I would have told you high motor, high energy guy when he's in the game. That's what we had here. I was appalled watching Chase do that. Now, again, I got no ill will towards Chase Young. I said the same thing about EB, and I mean that sincerely. When you come here, and you leave here and it doesn't work, I got no ill will towards you. You just can't be here. That's it. But when Tez said it, a lot of people chalked it, oh, he's a hater. He's gone. So, of course, he's got bad things to say. He's a little salty because he wanted to get paid here in Washington. No, I think Tez was just, saying how he felt. And it turned out to be true. We watched these dudes quit at the end of the year. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, even though it's probably unlikely with the money we have, I think Quinn will consider signing some names like Danielle Hunter or the Jags' Josh Johnson. Danielle Hunter doesn't fit in our timeline. Okay. Now Josh Allen does fit in our timeline. And if you were going to spend some money, it'd be on a guy like him versus a guy like Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter's 30 already. Like, you might not be ready to win for 2 more years. By the time you're ready to win, Danielle Hunter could be 33 years old. That doesn't make any sense. Now, Josh Allen, on the other hand, is like 25 years old. So he'd make plenty of sense if you wanted to go in that direction. So I more so see a guy like him being, having money, spent on than a guy like Danielle Hunter. But I wouldn't be shocked if there's one of those high ticket priced items that they pull in this offseason. But I wouldn't be looking for 3 or 4 of them, right? I think it's maybe one and then a bunch. Because like I told you, when Adam Peters was with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, Kyle went in and they had a lot of cap space, and he went out and they spent a lot of money, but a lot of it was, like I told you, those 1-2 year deals. But he did spend on Pierre, right? And he did spend on Kyle Juszczyk. Like, he did go out and get some high-priced items. And you see Juszczyk is still there, right? Still performing. They just gave him another contract like a year or 2 ago. Pierre was a guy that he trusted coming from Washington that he knew he could bring in there. And so he went and got Pierre, that just was leaving Washington, and he signed him to a big 5-year deal or whatever. But I could see them spending a little something, and then the rest of the stuff is like, 1-2 year deals, but we'll see. Alex L, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Kliff has worked with shorter, mobile Korean quarterbacks. Sam Howell whisperer, trade back in the draft. What are we doing here, man? What are we doing here, Alex L? What are we doing? I think that they brought him in here to work with whomever they draft at 1 or 2. Whoever they spend their very first pick on in the draft this year. I think that's who they brought him in here to work with. Amario Delcit, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Amario? Hope fam is doing well likewise. All I care about is that everything works out great for the franchise and we win regardless the stuff. That's all we all want. That's all any of us want. And I told you, we may all have different ways of getting to the ultimate goal, but the goal doesn't change for us as fans. We all want to win. We may not agree on how to get to the ultimate winning that we all seek as fans. You may think Sam Howell is the guy they should go with, trade back, get offensive linemen, get other picks, try to fill more holes. Somebody else may say, get Jaden Daniels. Somebody else may say, get Drake May. Somebody else say, hey, you have to do everything to get to get Caleb Williams. There's so many different ways, but at the end of the day, all of those same people that are arguing, and that's 4 different ways to achieve the same goal, all of them want to win at the end of the day. That's it. Well, that's all we have. All we want as fans is to win. So hopefully everything that we're doing now is in the name of winning, and it leads to winning down the line. And sustained winning, not just a lightning in the bottle season, which we haven't had since 1991. We haven't had a lightning in the bottle. There was 2012. There was 05. There was 07, right? But those still weren't lightning in the bottle seasons because we didn't win 11 or 12 games like everybody else in the league has done. We won 10 in 2012. We won 10 in 2005. So I myself would like to win 10 or more. I would like to win 11 games or more and consistently be in that same conversation and be a Super Bowl contender. That's what we're aiming for. But you got to take baby steps, right? It's hard to skip steps. In a league set up for parity, there are teams that every year are in the mix because they've set it up to where every year you can count on them being good. As long as they have health, they'll be in the mix. I'm trying to be one of those teams. I don't want to be one of the teams that, hey, this year they're in the playoffs. Next year we got to grab 4 teams out and insert 4 new teams. And we one of the teams that they keep inserting and then taking out. I'm trying to be one of those teams that's getting in every year. You already know what it is. Mike H. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mike writes, it's going to be nice to turn the ball over and flip the field, but both Fuller and Forbes are better zone corners. Quinn runs a lot of man. But remember, in his past life as an offensive or defensive coordinator in Seattle, he was a cover 3 dude. So he knows how to run zone, right? We've seen him evolve over time. In Atlanta, he ran cover 3, or in Seattle, he ran cover 3. In Atlanta, he ran primarily zone. Then he got to Dallas, and he ran primarily man. So he adapted and adjusted to what he had to work with. I assume, and again, this is where the coaching comes in, Joe Witt Jr. is going to get in there. He's going to figure out what these dudes can do best. And I'm hoping that they put them in the best positions to succeed. That's where coaching comes into play. You don't go out and sign William Jackson III and say, bro, you played all man in Cincinnati. We're going to bring you here and play you in some zone, right? What do you say about that? And then get mad when he start effing the zone coverage up. You don't go out and get Josh Norman, who made his living playing cover 3 in Carolina, and then say, hey, we're going to bring you here and play you some man coverage. How you feel about that? You're going to travel with A.J. Green. You're going to travel with Des Bryant. You're going to travel all around and get your ass cooked. That ain't how this shit's supposed to work. You get a guy, you see what he does well, and then you do that. That's what I'm hoping these guys will come in and do. So he's shown the ability to be adaptable. we'll see. I think he's going to be able to be adaptable and adjust. And again, you said Fuller's a guaranteed lock to be back. Fuller might not be here. We'll see. Henry Aspinwall, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, the lack of commitment last year was glaring. Says, especially on D. It was apparent with Chase. San Fran sees it and are totally pissed off with his effort. Need an on-your-ass commitment, Joe Witt. Let's go. I think San Francisco definitely saw that. Anybody watching could see the lack of effort. And they aren't happy. And I've seen rumors, I don't know if I buy it or not, that they're going to bench him for the Super Bowl. We'll see. It was ugly. I mean, the lack of effort was nasty, especially on that touchdown run by Jahmyr Gibbs. That can't happen on the NFL field. That's disgusting because he could have made that tackle. Had he hustled, that's not a touchdown. Joe Witt, I'm just telling you right now, he's a stickler for attention to detail and for everybody doing their job and doing it to the fullest of their abilities. And he's gonna hold dudes accountable. I've watched several press conferences from him. I know where this dude stands. There's a reason why Cowboys fans wanted this guy to be promoted to defensive coordinator, because they know he's gonna hold dudes accountable. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Haval, thank you for being a member for 3 months. Who writes, Lou, will the run game improve because EB was blah? Yeah, it will. I wholeheartedly believe that the run game, first of all, the run game wasn't bad. Like I keep stating this. We just didn't run it enough. We did not run it enough. Now, there are people that will push back against that and say when we needed to run it, we couldn't. Touche. I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm just telling you when we made a concerted effort to run the football, we were getting 5, 6, 7, 8 yards per carry. There are games where Brian Robinson has 9 carries and he's got 63 yards. And you're like, bro, that's 7 yards a pop. And it's not like it was just one run for 47 yards in there and that's what made up the ball. No. Yeah, there's a 26-yard run in there or a 19-yard run, but it's a lot of 7 and 6 and 4 and 9 and 12 and 4. Like, you go, bro, why we stop running? It's a lot of games like that. Go look at the logs. It's a lot of games where you go, bro, why did we stop running in that game? And, you know, they'll lie to you. If you didn't watch, they'll try to lie to you and say, well, they were down big in a lot of these games and they had to get away from it. We weren't down big against the Buffalo Bills in week 3 when he was averaging 6 yards a carry. And it was raining. And he was killing them in the first half. And we were down 16-0 for 3 quarters. Don't sell me that bullshit. You didn't have to stop running the ball. You just did. Right? Like, we'll run it better with Kliff Kingsbury. I totally believe that. Wholeheartedly. And I'm not just saying that because he's here and I'm excited about it. If history repeats itself from what he did in Arizona, now we got to go get the pieces to make it work. The running back is already here, though. You got to go get the quarterback. We're going to have some success running football if you fix the offensive line. Smack City, been a member for 18 months. Truly appreciate you. Who writes, need Caleb to pull an Eli on draft day. I mean, I feel some type of way about that. I really, truly do. I don't think that's the essence of what the draft is supposed to be about. That's the point of a draft, is a team that sucked the year prior is put in a position. They made shrewd moves to ensure that they had the Panthers pick, and the Panthers sucked. The Bears aren't that much better. Their damn selves. And so they have a decision to make. They've put themselves in this position, and you shouldn't, as a player, be able to rob a team of that decision. I get it. Some organizations suck and this, that, and the third, and you don't want to. And I get all of that. But what if you're the guy that helps turn a bad organization around? Who knows? If Peyton Manning didn't want to go to Indianapolis, are the Colts right now? Maybe not. They were a bad organization until Peyton Manning got there. I know that's one of those outlier examples that doesn't happen most times, that a quarterback comes in and changes an entire organization, but it can, is what I'm saying. And so the Bears have been looking for a franchise quarterback since Jim McMahon, pretty much. Like Jay Cutler, it's fine. If you want to call him a franchise QB, he did take them to the NFC Championship game. So there's that. But they've been looking for a guy. Probably since Bobby Lane. Like, they need a dude, man. We'll see what happens. We need a dude. Shit. We ain't had one since Joe Theismann. I mean, I count Kirk Cousins, but a lot of people don't. But we need a guy. It may be Caleb, but I feel some type of way about that. I don't like people, players being able to pull rank like that and force the hand of a team. I didn't like when Eli did it. I don't like that at all. But it worked out for him, and he's going to be a Hall of Fame player, and he went to New York. So we'll see. Henry Aspinwall, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Really appreciate you, Henry Aspinwall. JD Sports Talk, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. JD Sports Talk writes, Caleb Williams' IG story post already trending, LOL. I haven't seen it, but if it's trending as you say it is, it'll end up on my doorstep. Somebody will send it to me. I haven't seen what he said, but I'm assuming he reacted like we all have to the news of, Kliff Kingsbury being here in Washington. All of the, stars are aligning. If he and Kliff Kingsbury have a great relationship, he already wanted to come back home. Okay. But I say that, but when he made his list of teams that he wanted to play for, we weren't one of them. Now, that was before Snyder had sold the team. So he could feel genuinely different about the prospects of playing in Washington now. But and with the new staff and Quinn, and he's probably heard great things about Dan Quinn and his culture that he sets. He's always made it abundantly clear, and I told you guys this. If you haven't watched QB Conundrum, I did a Caleb Williams episode. That's available. Go check it out. But I talked about him wanting to play for a younger coach. He said he wants to be in that type of environment. Well, that's the kind of environment that we're cultivating here in Washington now. So I don't know. Things have changed. Maybe he'll, want to play here. But again, I don't think it's right that a player should be able to determine where he plays. I just don't. But we'll see what happens. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. John Perez, my guy JP writes, I actually think McLaurin and Dotson can thrive in Kingsbury's air raid, especially if they get the right QB. Also, I think Quinn could turn Forbes' career around. I actually think they're going to really thrive in this offense as well. This, again, Terry's been in an offense similar to this before. And I really, truly believe that their skill sets will be highlighted, especially Dotson's, because this is the type of offense where they get it to him quickly. And I think Dotson is one of those dudes that does some really good things with the ball in his hands after the catch. We saw it against the Giants in his rookie season when he caught that, shallow cross and did the rest. As far as Forbes is concerned, it's not going to just be Dan Quinn. I think it's going to be more Joe Witt Jr., right? And we'll see who they bring in again to fill out the staff. But I know y'all saw Al Harris. Y'all heard the clip of Al Harris saying, wherever Dan Quinn needs me, he could be coaching somewhere in Alaska. If he need me, I'm coming. I don't think we're going to be able to pry him away from Dallas. I mean, Dallas can block him, or they could just make him their new defensive coordinator. It's really up to Dallas. They don't have to let him walk if they don't want to. And I don't see them doing us a solid and letting Al Harris walk when he's had success for them. So we'll see what happens. But I think we could see a lot of the guys in our secondary who we think have talent, like Quan Martin, like Defoe, like Emmanuel Forbes, as you just mentioned, maybe even Benjamin St. Juice. For me with Juice, I never liked him coming out of Minnesota because he doesn't take the ball away. But all the other dudes that I just mentioned have proven that they can take the ball away at various points of their careers, whether we talk about college or the NFL. They've proven that they can take the ball away, not Benjamin St. Juice. So I don't know if they'll be able to do but so much for him. But the other guys that have been proven playmakers, whether it's Defoe in his second year in the league, where he led our team in interceptions along with Kendall Fuller. Obviously, Quan Martin, part of the reason we drafted him was because of what he did at Illinois. And then obviously Forbes and what he did at Mississippi State. And then you throw in another guy like Percival Butler, who has talent. I think they could do wonders for all those young players with all of that talent, speed, and ability. So we'll see. J.2626, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. Y'all know what to do. Show J.2626 some love. Welcome him with open arms. You show them how we do it in the MOBB. Welcome to the squad, J.2626. And once again, thank you for your generosity. Swaggy P, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Swaggy P writes, EB, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here. I'll help you pack. Amen to that, brother. That's exactly how I felt. And I think I've even said that before. Like, bro, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here. You can't stay here, bro. It's not safe for you here. Okay? I'll help you pack. Right? I mean, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have had to touch a single item at his home. We would have banded together as a fan base, and we would have packed every single item up for him to make sure he wasn't here this year. And again, I wish him nothing but the best. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JP writes, I'd like to ask a little bit about free agency. Would you like a guy like DeAndre Swift or T. Higgins or Pollard? Those guys fit a rebuild. Boy, you're going to have to pay a lot for T. Higgins. The Bengals have made it abundantly clear. I think they're going to slap the franchise tag on him. Personally, I don't think they let him walk. So I think he won't be in the mix. DeAndre Swift is interesting. He's got to stay healthy. He'd be a perfect fit for this offense that Kliff Kingsbury wants to run. And I don't know if it's going to cost you a whole hell of a lot to sign a DeAndre Swift. I think the Eagles criminally underutilized him. He was their best player at times, especially early in the season, and they just stopped using him for whatever reason. I can't even explain that shit. That's why Brian Johnson is another EB. Like, I can't touch that dude with a 10-foot pole because you got a guy over here killing it, and you just refuse to give it to him for whatever reason, right? Swift is a really good football player. I wouldn't mind adding him, and you probably won't have to pay a whole hell of a lot. My first inkling, though, at running back is to always look in the draft. You know what I'm saying? It's always to just look in the draft. But I wouldn't mind adding a DeAndre Swift. I actually think, and I don't think you're going to have to break the bank to pay him either. Like, his value, I think, decreased because the Eagles just didn't use him enough. So, I don't know if he'll be back in Philadelphia, but he's another Philly dude. He grew up in that area. I think he would want to stay in Philadelphia. And now that they've got a different coordinator, he might think things may be different. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see. He fits. I will say that. He fits. Tony Pollard, I'm good. I'm good on Tony Pollard. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do with him in Dallas, but I'm good on Tony Pollard. I'll pass. King of the Bluegrass. I'll tell you this. I'm much more interested in DeAndre Swift than I am Tony Pollard. I'll just tell you that. King of the Bluegrass. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I don't really think the Caleb Williams to Washington thought process is that far off. It seems like Chicago is being clever and coy, but I really think they are still 50-50 on what they want to do with the first pick. They are. I don't think they've made a decision yet. But I think the reason they haven't made a decision, let me backtrack. Let me say this correctly. I do think that they are leaning in a direction. I don't think it's 50-50 anymore. I think they've played it down the middle so that they're 50-50 and they could go either way. And I think they've done a beautiful job of setting it up to where if they got to start all over with a new quarterback, they can do that. They've put the pieces in place to be able to do that seamlessly. But if they have to go back to Fields, they've set it up to where it's a seamless transition with their new offensive coordinator who runs a similar scheme to the one they just had. And so it's not going to be wholesale changes, and the development isn't stunted. The growth isn't stunted. So they've put themselves in a position to where, because they're running a form of air raid right out there in Chicago. That's what Luke Getsy ran. That's why the Raiders just went and got Luke Getsy, because they were getting a guy that runs the air raid, or they thought they were in Kliff Kingsbury. He shunned them, right? Things broke down, whatever way they broke down, and he came here. And so they went and got another guy that has air raid principles in Luke Getsy. So again, they went and got Shane Waldron, another guy with air raid background and air raid principles, right? So again, I think they have put themselves in a position where if they got to go back to Fields, they're fine. If they're able to go with Caleb Williams and it's all systems go in that direction, they're fine too. This is the thing. Unless Caleb Williams gives them vibes that turns them off, I think he's the pick. Look at it in this direction. Look at it from this perspective. This is the way I think you should attack this all draft process long until you hear differently. Caleb Williams is the #1 overall pick to the Chicago Bears until otherwise notified. That's how you should. Well, remember how they came in last year and said, Sam is the quarterback going into the offseason, and there was really nothing that changed that narrative, right? They brought in Jacoby to compete, but it was Sam's job. As Rivera liked to say, it was his job to win. Whatever the case may be, phrase it however you want. His job to win, his job to lose. It was his job starting out. This is Caleb Williams's, or the Bears pick is Caleb Williams until something happens that changes that. Look at it that way. That's the way you should address this and approach it. I don't think they're 50-50. I think they're leaning towards taking Caleb Williams, but things can change, as we know. So they got to be prepared either way, and I think they put themselves in a position to be prepared either way. Corey, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Corey, you got to put that comment in first. I think you're struggling with that right now. Corey, thank you for the super chat once again. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Really appreciate you, Corey. Hopefully you get that comment in there. I see you trying to get in. On the way, HTTC. Thank you for becoming a member of the MOBB mob. Y'all know what to do. Show On the Way HTTC what it feels like to be a member of the mob. So glad to have you on board. Welcome to the squad. On the Way HTTC. Miggy, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Miggy writes, "Sup, Lou? It just hit me the amounts of all-pro and Pro Bowlers DQ and Witt Jr. has produced in 20 years. I'm excited for Defoe, Forbes, Martin, even St. Juice, and Percy." I'm telling you that I was on the Burgundy Zone. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. And he asked me who was the guy that I was, most looking forward to seeing growth from. And Forbes was a guy, but I was thinking about Quan Martin because of how he finished last season. He was playing some good football. I was impressed with Quan Martin towards the end of the season. And it started to look like a guy that was a second-round pick, right? Because he could play. We weren't upset that they drafted Quan Martin. It was that they drafted Quan Martin seemingly not having a plan for him. We're drafting a backup safety. I think they thought he was going to come in and immediately be their nickel. And I don't know if he spooked them in the preseason with his struggles or what, but it looked like they didn't have a plan. And that's what pissed us off, because you drafted another guy that wasn't ready to help you right away in the second round in a year where you had to win. It just didn't make any sense, because your third-round pick wasn't going to help you. You drafted a backup center. If you signed Nick Gates in free agency, then you had no intentions of starting Ricky Stromberg. Same thing with your 4th round pick. He didn't even make your squad. You had to put him on IR so that you didn't risk cutting him and losing him. So you didn't look like dumbasses. But we all knew the truth. So that's why we were pissed off about Quan Martin in the 2nd round when you could have had Brian Branch. And we saw what he turned out to be. But Martin looks like he might actually be really good. Better coaching, and I think you could see Quan Martin play up to the level that maybe Rivera and company saw when they pulled the trigger on him, because they got offers to trade out of that spot, and Rivera was like, we can't move. Our guy's going to be there. Their guy all along was Quan Martin, right? So we'll see. But Forbes is definitely, you spend a 1st round pick on a dude, you want to get, a return on that investment. He may be a guy that really, steps up. But again, you go through Joe Witt Jr.'s catalog, you go through Dan Quinn's catalog, and you'll see what they've done for guys in the secondary, particularly Joe Witt. That's why I was so excited about Joe Witt Jr. in particular, because he's going to get the most out of these dudes in the secondary. That's his specialty. That's what he does best. It's like Nick Saban. Nick Saban is a defensive guy through and through, but his specialty is the secondary. So when he sends dudes to the NFL, he's sending you some dogs because they've been well coached. And you've seen a lot of those Alabama secondary dudes come in and play really well. Why? Because they're getting some of the best coaching from a guy that specializes in DB play. I think you're going to see that with Joe Witt Jr. That's why I'm excited about him coming on board, because we got talent in the secondary. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, CD, OG, triple OG. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, remember Charlie Casserly, GM for all our Super Bowl winning teams, had an eye for talent. Peters' acquisition is the gem of the offseason. And I said he was going to be the most important hire. GM was going to be the most important hire, because you got to have an eye for talent. Now, the league has changed drastically since Charlie Casserly was here, or not Charlie Casserly. Bobby Beathard is who you're talking about. Bobby Beathard. Charlie Casserly I think he was the right-hand man, though, of Bobby Beathard. But Charlie Casserly was here, and he took over after Beathard left to go to the Chargers. But it was Bobby Beathard that was really the architect of those Super Bowl teams, right? But things have changed drastically since Bobby Beathard was here, because there's free agency now. It's almost impossible to build the type of teams that they did back in those days where guys couldn't leave. This is your team. Every year you knew who your guys were, and then you would bring in more guys, right? But what hasn't changed is the ability to identify talent. And the best teams in the league have a specific type of player that they're looking for that fits the DNA profile of their organization. The best teams in the league identify what qualities they're looking for in players, find those qualities in those players, draft them, and bring them on board. That's what we have to do, is establish an identity. Who are we as a team? What are we looking for? What do players that play here embody? We haven't had an identity in decades in Washington. Decades. Adam Peters has a chance to establish what it means to be a Commander this offseason. He's got a chance to establish that. We'll see what he does. I'm looking forward to it. HTTR for life. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, this move made me feel better about Quinn as a head coach. And there were a lot of you who said, I need to see who they hire as an OC first before I get excited about the Quinn hire. I'm indifferent right now. Hire a good OC or a guy that I believe in as an OC, and then I'll feel a little bit different about it. You're one of those who felt that way, and I had no issues with that. And I'm glad you endorsed this hire, because all it means is you're going to give it an opportunity to see if it works. That's all I'm asking the fan base to do at the end of the day. I'm not telling you to fall head over heels in love with all the decisions that they're making. You may not agree with the Dan Quinn hire. You may not agree with this hire here. All I'm asking you to do is give it a chance. And if you like somebody, you're going to give it a chance. So anyway, I digress. Chipper, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Chipper writes, I'm dumb hyped for this, actually. This could work. Yeah, it could work. We were dumb hyped for EB last year, and that shit didn't work. So it doesn't matter how hyped we are here on February the 3rd, 4th now on the East Coast. Doesn't matter how excited we are. We're at 5th now on the East Coast, right? February 4th, now 5th on the East Coast. At the end of the day, what's ultimately going to really make us excited is if we see progress being made. That's what'll really tell us, oh shit, this really could work. We get the quarterback right. The offensive play calling looks to be good. Guys are fitting into their roles, and we're seeing the development of some of these younger players, and we're starting to see guys playing at a high level. What I'm most excited about right now is that defensively, we're going, because I still don't know what the hell this offense is going to be, because we still got a lot to do. We got to fix the offensive line. We got to get the quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. We got to get a tight end. Still a lot of work to be done. Got to get that speed back that I was talking about. Still a lot of work to be done on the offensive side of football. So I still don't really know what we're getting on. This defense, they got to draft some ends, clearly. Still got to improve the linebacker position. But the secondary, we went into this offseason thinking this secondary almost needs to be overhauled. Now, with these guys coming in that are teachers, that may not be the case. You may be able to add. We still need a nickel. I don't know if there's a nickel on this staff right now, on this roster rather, right now. But I feel really good about the parts that we have in the secondary. They're very workable. They're talented. And with better coaching, I think you can see an uptick in their production. All of a sudden, it doesn't look as grim and bleak in that secondary. And so I'm excited about that. We'll see what happens on offense. I'm hyped about the direction of the organization as a whole. The Adam Peters hire is still the one that I'm most excited about right now. And if Adam thinks that Dan Quinn is the right man for the job, I'm excited about Dan Quinn. And if Dan Quinn thinks that Kliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt Jr. are the best guys for those respective positions, then I'm excited about those guys. Because it all starts with Adam Peters. Shit, I'm excited about Josh Harris and the ownership group. Starts with them. Then it trickles down to AP. Then it trickles down to DQ. We can go with all these damn abbreviations. Robert Ramsey. Stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. So glad to have you on board. I thought you told me Navy Ramjet was coming to visit tomorrow. So are we getting both of them, or are you going to just go with Robert? Whatever the case may be, so glad to have you on board. Mob, y'all know what to do. Open your arms wide. Show Robert Ramsey some love. Show him what it's like to be a member of the MOBB. Robert Ramsey, welcome to the squad. Glad to have you. On the way, HTTC. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, send the chipster to ODU. LOL. He would never. I mean, the man is already at UCLA, right? At an established program at a Power 5. Out in Cal. He's probably living the life. He ain't winning shit. They didn't have a bad year this past year. And they beat USC. That's always a good thing, right? But we could only hope he would come somewhere like that, right? We can only dream. Anyway, Ramallah Levy, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Ramallah writes, hey, Louie. What's up, Ramallah? Hope all is well. Likewise. Do you think Jaden Daniels is a lot to be drafted by us due to Kingsbury's offensive philosophy? I won't say a lot, but it feels a lot more likely since the Kliff Kingsbury hire. It feels, since we started talking about him potentially being a front runner yesterday or 2 days ago now, it's Monday on the East Coast. It felt like the minute he became the primary target for OC, it felt like Jaden Daniels became more of a likely scenario at 2 than Drake May does. Now, again, as someone alluded to earlier, Drake May did play in an air raid attack under Phil Longo. So did Sam Howell. So by virtue of that, don't dismiss that. Hell, don't dismiss Sam, right? Being that this is an air raid attack and And Sam Howell blossomed and thrived in that system under Phil Longo. Don't dismiss that, but dismiss that. Don't dismiss it, but dismiss it at the same time. Because, again, it's hard to pass up an opportunity to draft a quarterback at 2. It just is. You can't pass this opportunity up because you don't plan on being here again, right? The only reason the 49ers, who when Adam Peters, and this is why I love going back to what Peters did and looking at that as a template, because even though he wasn't the chief decision maker, he was one of the lead voices leading the charge in San Francisco when they all got there in 2017. Him, John Lynch, and obviously Kyle Shanahan. In 2017, they got to a situation that was just like this. They were 2-14. Chipster had just left them in disarray. The roster was terrible, and they were drafted number 2 overall, and they could have taken a quarterback in that 17 draft. I'm trying to think. That was the Mitchell Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes draft. They could have taken a quarterback at 2. They needed a quarterback, but they wanted Kirk Cousins. And we were too stupid. Bruce Allen too dumb to trade him the number 2 overall pick for Kirk Cousins. We could have drafted our quarterback right there and been done with it. Now, we might have did the stupid shit. We probably did something dumb like draft Mitchell Trubisky. Our stupid ass back in those days. But we could have maybe gotten a quarterback. No, we didn't want to give Kyle Kirk because they had a vendetta against Kyle. Dumbasses. Anyway, they could have drafted a quarterback, but they didn't at 2. They traded back 1 spot. We're in a position to trade back 1 spot with New England. They traded back 1 spot with Chicago, let them come up and get Mitchell Trubisky, and then they took the dude from Stanford, right? So the defensive lineman from Stanford. So who knows what they're thinking? They could repeat that here in Washington. I doubt it. The reason that they didn't take a quarterback is they thought they were going to be able to trade for Kirk Cousins. They didn't love any of those quarterbacks. And Kyle didn't want a rookie. He wanted an established veteran. He didn't get Kirk, and clearly we weren't going to trade them Kirk. So what did he do? He went out and he traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. He wanted a veteran. He didn't want a rookie. This is different. I think they want a young quarterback. Maybe they don't. We'll see. Right? We don't know. We can only speculate. The assumption is they're drafting a quarterback. That's the assumption. And until, just like I said with Caleb Williams at 1 to Chicago, until that changes or they do something that leads me to believe otherwise, they're taking a quarterback at 2. And so, no, I wouldn't call Jaden Daniels a lock, but I'd say he's the favorite right now to be drafted number 2 overall. I'll say that. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, CD triple OG. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Lou. Chauncey. Don't sleep on Sam. I'm not. You know you ain't got to wake me up. I was the leader of the Sam fan club. I still think Sam can play. You know that. But I'm not going to lie to you. Sam did show his ass at the end of last season. I look at Sam's performance from weeks 11 through 18, which is the damning part of his season. Give me weeks 1 through 10. And yeah, there are a couple of stinkers in there. Giants game, Bills game. There were a couple of stinkers in there. But give me weeks 1 through 10. I can live with that. That's the growing pains of a young quarterback. Shit happens. It's what he did in weeks 11 through 18 that scared the shit out of me. And at some point, as a quarterback, you got to stop the bleeding. I liken it to what I talked about with Carson Wentz. They failed Carson before Carson failed us. They failed Sam before Sam failed us. Nothing has changed. I feel the same way. I said that about Carson Wentz. I'll stick by that. Samson, I stick by my story. Okay? I ain't changing. They failed Carson before he failed us. They failed Sam before Sam failed us. But it doesn't change the fact that Sam failed us. So I think, and he didn't just fail, he failed miserably. Okay. Like at one point, we were trending in the 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. We were heading in that direction. By the time we got to the end of the season, interceptions and touchdowns was neck and neck. I don't know. Interceptions might have passed touchdowns. It was 21-21 at one point. 21 INTs in a season is crazy. Crazy work. Anyway, he says, I know how second half of the season went and some was down on him, but in a Kliff Kingsbury scheme, I'm just saying, you're not wrong for saying that. I just don't think that's going to take place. But don't rule it out. I wholeheartedly agree. Like the percentage chance of that happening went slightly up. It was probably at like a 2% when this whole process started out that Sam Howell would get another chance, like 2%. I think it's at 7% now. It went up. Still highly unlikely, but it went up. Terrence Brown, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Terrence writes, hey Lou, what's up, Terrence? Josh Allen would be nice, but we need linebacker. Queen, Alshire, and Cashman are all free agents. Your thoughts? So Alshire and Cashman fit to me from a monetary standpoint. What we'll probably be looking to do. The years will fit too with those two individuals. Cashman coming off of a career year with the Texans. I'd be shocked if the Texans don't bring him back. It's not going to cost you a lot to bring back a guy that had a career year for you this year. But we'll see what they decide to do with him. Linebackers are one of those positions where teams consistently let linebackers test the market. So I can see Cashman being out there. If I'm the Texans, they got a lot of young stuff that they should be able to afford to bring back. Like the edge rusher, Jonathan Grenard, who I told you I would go after and pursue this offseason. He seems to be finally figuring it out. Had a career year this year. Cashman had a career year this year. I would bring those guys back if I'm Houston and try to keep some of that continuity. But we'll see what they decide to do at the end of the day. Alshire is not going to cost you an arm and a leg either. Not going to cost you a ton of money. He has limitations, but he's a really good linebacker. To me, Queen is just going to cost way too much money. I think for that particular position, I'm not willing to invest that kind of money in a guy that hasn't done it for me personally. And remember, I don't think a lot of y'all remember before they got their hands on Roquan Smith, there were question marks about Patrick Queen. They didn't love Patrick Queen at the very beginning. Some were disappointed in him. So it wasn't until Roquan got there, and then I think Queen started to flourish at that moment. Now that he wasn't viewed as the savior at the linebacker position, they had a guy. He could play off ball, which is probably where he belonged, and he thrived and he flourished from that point forward. But I truly believe that Queen's going to be looking for top dollar. He doesn't see himself as a mid-tier, linebacker. I told you what he scoffed at 4 years, 67, which is what Spot Rack had him at from an estimate, right? He was like thumbs down to that shit. So that tells you he's viewing himself somewhere probably in that 85, $90 million range. He won't get to 100, I don't think. But who knows? Somebody might offer him 4 years. Five. No, it wouldn't be 4 years. It'd be 5 years, $100 million. That's what Roquan, I think, just got. Somebody might offer him something like that, but it's probably 4 years. He's probably looking for something like 4 years, $84 million or something like that. I ain't trying to get that shit to him, personally. Not at linebacker. Now, if you do that, if we draft you and you do that shit for us, then I want to reward you here, like a Fred Warner in San Francisco. right? You ball out for us on your rookie deal. I want to pay you, and I'll pay you big money. But I'm not paying somebody else linebacker to come here. Not at that position. I'm not, just like safety, I'm not paying top dollar for some safety to come in here. That's not a position you spend, to me, and this is my philosophical belief. There's certain positions you don't pay a ton of money for in free agency unless it's your guy. You drafted him. You know what you're getting out of him. He's a leader in the locker room, et cetera, et cetera. Then you pay him. I'll pay Fred Warner. I drafted him, homegrown product, leader, study rat, gym rat, studies in the film room. Like, he's everything you want. I'll pay him. I'll pay Dre Greenlaw. That's my guy. I drafted him. I see what he's turned into. I'll pay him. I'm not going to get a guy from another team, though, and break him off and bring him here. That's not at that position in particular. There's certain positions I don't mind doing it for. That ain't one of them. But that's just me. Again, that's just my philosophy. I'd really be shopping in that Alshire Cashman market more so than Josh Allen or Patrick Queen's market. That's too rich for my blood. I'm going to the back of the store. Might not be all the way in the back where the pink tags are at. I might be more in the middle of the store, but I damn sure ain't right at the front of the store where all the high-priced items at. Booker, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, 1, if we want Caleb, what's the most you're willing to give up? 2, what do you think he'll realistically fetch? Great stuff as always, Lou. Thank you, Booker. 1, if you want him, it's not going to be cheap. So many people think just because we're a pick behind them, you're not going to have to give up a lot. The Bears know what kind of a position they're in. They're in a position to fleece somebody. And again, they can use us and New England against each other because the Patriots are in the same spot that we're in. They need a quarterback just as bad as we do. And they're starting over just like we're starting over. They just got rid of Bill Belichick. They flushing the whole system and starting anew. You don't think they want to start it over with Caleb Williams? Yeah, right. So I can use that as a leverage chip to say, hey, bro, look, I got New England on the line. And if the Bears are keeping Justin Fields, now, again, I still think they can't move behind Arizona at 4 if you still want Marvin Harrison Jr. Because you already know 1, 2, and 3, all quarterbacks. So you ain't got to worry about nobody taking your wide receiver as long as you stay in the top 3. Arizona's the first time where another team that's not looking for a quarterback enters the mix, and you could lose out on Marvin Harrison Jr. So if you're the Bears and you still want Marvin Harrison Jr., like that's the guy that you're targeting if you're going to roll with Justin Fields, you can't trade any further back than 3. So using a team like the Giants at 6 or the Falcons at 8 as leverage doesn't hit unless you're willing to say, I don't give a shit about Marvin Harrison Jr. I'll take the receiver from LSU if we want a receiver to pair with DJ Moore. I ain't tripping. But what you're not going to do is try to lowball me on what you're going to give me for this pick because I got options. You feel me? So ultimately, you swap in picks clearly. So you swap in, 2024 picks in the first round. You coming up off of one of those 2s in 2024. At a bare minimum, you coming up off one of them 2s in 2024 that you got. So the Bears might be like, hey, give me back my second round pick, man, that they gave us in the Montez Sweat trade. And then I need your 2025 first round pick. That's at a bare minimum. Now you start entering other teams into the mix, and the price could go up. The price could go up. That's at a bare minimum I think it's going to take. Swap picks. I need one of them 2s up off you, and I need your first round of next year. And then if you get other teams involved, that's how you get a Jonathan Allen thrown in as a sweetener because the other teams can't do that. So that's how you beat them out, right? But that's the leverage. That's the chip they can push. They can press that button. They got all the power. And I don't have to do business with you if you don't give me what I want. Trust me, Carolina did not want to give them DJ Moore. The Bears said, if you don't give me DJ Moore, I'll give this pick to somebody else. You're not the only team I'm talking to. And they knew that. And their owner was so thirsty to get up there to get Bryce that he was willing to give up DJ Moore. And we all asked, well, who the hell you throwing the ball to? He's like, I'll worry about that later. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens if the Bears decide to move on. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, King of the Bluegrass. Right. What is Kingsbury percentage under center? I don't know if there's a lot of that or not. I can't recall them being under center at all, to be honest with you. Let me tell you something funny. I remember talking about this on my podcast years ago because Kingsbury, remember, Kliff Kingsbury came in the league with Kyler Murray in 2019. That's when he got the job. And Kyler Murray had never been under center. And in Kliff Kingsbury offense, he was never under center. So because he was never under center. Now, this was early in his career. I don't know. It might have changed as he adapted and adjusted to the NFL. I'd have to go back and watch it. Maybe I'll do that. And I probably will do that. But when they got into victory formation, they would take their victory formation snaps out of gun. That's how bad it was. How Kyler Murray wasn't even comfortable taking snaps under center because he didn't do it in college at all at Oklahoma, and he didn't do it with Kliff Kingsbury early in his career. So they would just take shotgun snaps and take a knee. Like, that's super dangerous, first and foremost. Because what if the guy snaps it over the quarterback's head? And Kyler Murray's a short quarterback. Now, they had a guy way behind Kyler Murray in case something stupid like that happened. And then they still had the guys beside him in case it, like, tipped off his hand or some shit. But still, like, you want to have the smallest margin, for error in that situation. And the easiest thing to do is just to snap it under center. And they would do it from the gun because they just weren't under center enough for him to be comfortable taking us under center snap. So that tells you how often they used to be under center, not very often. So I'd have to go back and watch to see if it adapted and adjusted as he got more and more integrated into the NFL culture, or if he just stayed under, in the gun. A lot of, the air raid is just gun. They don't get under center. Air raid is strictly a gun-based offense, really. So you're not going to see a lot of that. But again, I'm going to go back and watch, and I'll come back and tell you what I find eventually. At some point this offseason, we'll discuss Kliff Kingsbury's offense more. I'll go back and I'll watch, and I'll come back and tell you what I found, especially in 2021. That's the season I think I really want to zero in on because that's when he had his most success. That's when his offense was top 10 in both rushing and passing, scoring offense, etc. That's when they started out the season. I think they were 8-0, 9-0, last team to be undefeated. Then they lost to the Packers on a Thursday night, and then their season kind of unraveled. They still made it to the playoffs, but then they got embarrassed by the Rams. And I don't know if they ever really truly recovered from that loss. There was a lot of finger pointing after that loss, and it went sideways. And then it started bad the next year, and then Murray got hurt, and then he got fired. So anyway, I digress. Jason Fios, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Jason writes, Yo, Lou, Peters is playing chess. He is connected to Kliff. He was on the Patriots staff when they drafted Kliff in 2001. He moving different. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but hey, if you want to connect those dots, please, by all means, go right ahead. All right. You way more sophisticated than I am. That could be, a part of the rationale that they have a working history with one another. There is a relationship there, but I don't know if that has anything to do with the hire. But hey, look, man, if you connecting those dots, by all means, do it. I'm not gonna stop you. I'm not gonna stop you. Oh man. Navy Ramjet. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, like my HTTWFT, HTTR, HTTC, I'm going to charge my name a few or change my name a few. LOL. Hashtag I digress. So you changed it. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Now you're Navy Ramjet. That's what I was expecting, right? Navy Ramjet. So now you're Navy Ramjet. Hey, welcome aboard, man. Welcome to the squad. Booker. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Book. Right. Between 2020 and 2022, Kyler was in the gun 92% of the time. Under center only 2.9% of the time. Does this worry you? First double up ever, by the way. And that's the perfect time to do it because I just got asked that number for that number. Okay. I didn't have it, but I told you a story that would lead you to believe that the number was very minute if it existed at all. And from my recollection, I told you I'd have to go back and watch. You might have just saved me the time, but I'm still going to go back and watch their offense anyway. But that sounds about right. 92% of the time he was in the gun. That's the air raid is a gun-based offense. Okay, so understand that's what you're going to be in. Most of the time. That's where their rush offense came out of, was the gun. I do remember that. I don't remember them being under center too often. And if they were under center, that 2.9%, they had a quarterback there named Chris Strebler, right? Stinks. But when they would go quarterback sneak, they'd bring in Chris Strebler. They didn't want Kyler Murray quarterback sneaking. That might be a huge chunk of that 3%, essentially, that you're talking about under center. That might have been for quarterback sneak purposes only. Like, they really don't get in the gun all that often. Or excuse me, they really don't get under center all that often. So I'm not shocked that it was 2.9% of the time. But does that worry me? No. I mean, we watched Eric Bieniemy's offense last year. And I after being exposed to EB, it made me take a harder look at teams around the league and what they're doing specifically. And a lot of teams do that shit. A lot of teams get to 3rd and 1 and get in the gun and run it. A lot of teams get to 4th and 1 and are in the gun. I don't agree with that bullshit, but a lot of teams do it. A lot of teams get to 3rd and 1 and throw it. The 3rd and 1 has become a pass down in the league, believe it or not. And so we weren't the only team doing that shit. We just weren't very successful, it felt like, with it. The Chiefs do that shit all the time, but they are successful. But they also get under center and hand that bitch off to Isaiah Pacheco, right? So does it worry me? No. I mean, that's kind of the direction the league is trending in. Do I love it? No. And that's not my style of offense, and that's not what I would prefer. But I don't hate it. I'm a results-based guy. As long as you get me the results that I'm looking for, I don't give a shit how you arrive at that. I have my preference because I think certain offenses work better. But trust me, if I wasn't complaining about Scott Turner in year 1 in 2020, that he didn't get under center enough because we were scoring touchdowns in the red zone. All we had to do was, hand the ball off to Peyton Barber and he would score it or get the first down on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 every single time. So I wasn't complaining about it. It wasn't a problem until it became a problem. I don't care how you do it. Just get me the results I'm looking for. So we'll see. It'll be a problem if the shit ain't working. But until then, I ain't got no issues with it. Great double up. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, hey, Lou, question for you. If you were the coach, would you give up on a first-year quarterback if they set the record for interceptions in the season? No. It just depends on. So that's a loaded question because Peyton Manning had a record for interceptions for rookie and probably still exists. Like guys don't get an opportunity to throw 28 picks in a season anymore. That was okay in 1998. They're not giving dudes. I don't care where we drafted you at. You can't throw 28 picks in your rookie season. You would have gotten benched by then already. They would have taken you out of the game already. That don't mean they give up on you, but you're not going to get to 28 interceptions in your rookie season. They're just not going to let you do that. But part of that equation is they spent the number 1 overall pick on Peyton Manning. They weren't bailing on him. We didn't spend the number 1 overall pick on Sam Howell, if that's where you're going with that question. We spent the 5th round pick on him. That was the first pick in the 5th round, but it wasn't the 5th round. It wasn't the first round pick, and it wasn't the number 1 overall pick. So the investment isn't there. Hence, they don't have to stick around to see how this thing turns out with Sam, because they didn't invest a ton in him. It changes when there's a heavy investment. You want to know why the Panthers went out and got Dave Canales? Because they invested a whole hell of a lot to get up to number 1 to draft Bryce Young. We're going to make this shit work or we're going to die trying. So they went and got a guy that built Baker Mayfield back into a credible NFL quarterback. He's like, oh, shit, Dave Canales did that? Well, he could do the same thing for Bryce Young then. Baker's an undersized quarterback. They ran the football, even though it wasn't all that damn successful. They ran it. They kept him balanced. And Baker set career highs across the board. If he can do that with an undersized quarterback in Tampa, who people were down on, then he can do it here with a guy that has just as much talent, if not more. Baker was a former number 1 overall pick, right? He can do it for our guy. If you don't invest in that guy, then you're not going to invest in that guy more, right? Which I don't see them doing with Sam right now. But me personally, would I move on from a guy? Again, if you gave me the number 2 pick in the draft, I probably would move on from Sam. Because you got to understand, there's a lot. That's why I said this is a loaded question, because Sam's got 1 more year after this year on his rookie contract. We did not spend a 1st round pick on him, so there's no 5th year option. So you'd have to make a decision on Sam here shortly, right? This is year 3 for Sam we're going into. You only have 4 years on that rookie contract for Sam. So you're resetting that rookie contract. You're getting a number 2 overall pick, a guy that you are investing heavily in. So you're going to throw as many resources at him as possible. And you reset that clock. That clock more so aligns with the timeline that we've set for this team to be good than Sam's timeline does. Now, again, Sam's a young dude, and there's upside there. But if we were drafting 6th or 7th, Sam would probably be the starter next year. Probably be the starter next year. All he had to do was win 1 or 2 more. Just win 1 more game, and we probably would have been a 6th or 7th pick in the draft. Just beat the Jets. And he didn't have anything to do with that, but all he had to do was win 1 more game. He couldn't do it. He didn't even have us close. The 2 games that we actually came close to winning, Jacoby Brissett brought us back in both of those games against the Rams and the Jets. He had nothing to do with us being remotely close in any of the games down the stretch. Any games that he started and finished, we got our asses whooped in, and we didn't score more than 10 points. It's hard to go back to that. And again, that's tough on the kid, but it is. It's life. So again, that's a loaded question because different variables might change my answer. Mario Delsit, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mario writes, hey, Lou, how you like Sam Howell, Terry, Jahan, Marvin, Curtis, Rob with a better O-line and Kliff as OC? I'd love it. I'd love to see that. I doubt we see that, but you know how I feel about Sam. You know how I feel about Sam. And if they did that, I wouldn't be mad at all. But I'm going to watch these quarterbacks first because everybody is giving me different perspectives on what they think I'm going to feel like. Oh, I know you know ball, so after you watch these quarterbacks, you ain't going to love none of them. Okay, we'll see. You might be right. That still doesn't change the fact that you drafted one of them. The likelihood is you're still going to pull the trigger on one of these dudes. But we'll see. I'm not expecting any of these prospects, that includes Caleb Williams, to be perfect because they're not. Do they have enough traits that are moldable and elite at the next level that will allow them to potentially ascend and become one of the best quarterbacks in football? That's what you got to ask yourself. It's not always going to be perfect and pretty and aesthetically pleasing, but do they have the qualities necessary to potentially become one of the best quarterbacks in football? If the answer is yes, if the talent exists and you just got to mold it into what you need it to be, then you take that guy. If the answer is no, then we got to have a different conversation. That sounds good to me, though. All those players you just listed, I just don't see that happening. Because in your situation, you not only drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., you also brought back Curtis Samuel as well. And I don't know if that's happening either. So there's a lot of ifs and buts, but we'll see. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Metaphor. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Josh and AP need that chat with Kraft to deal for no bid war. That ain't happening. Because again, the Patriots want that first pick overall if they can get to it just as much as we probably do. I bet you if you go in the Patriots chat rooms and what the hell they talking about, I bet you they talking about the same shit we talking about. Can we get up to one to get Caleb Williams? And if not, which one of these quarterbacks? They probably talking like some of our fans talking. Like they don't have a choice. Like the Patriots literally don't have a choice in this matter. It's 3 quarterbacks and they get the one that's left. That's the worst position to be in. But it is what it is. Like they got to love all 3 because guess what? You're guaranteed to get one of the 3, but you ain't picking which one of the 3 you getting, right? It's the same thing that the 49ers did in 2021, right? When they traded up to 3. They liked all 3 of those quarterbacks. They had to trade up to 3 blindly. They didn't trade up to 3 with the Jets, or not the Jets. I forgot who was the third pick. It might have been the Dolphins, I think was third at the time. They didn't need a quarterback. They had already gotten 2 or whatever. But they traded up to 3, not knowing who was going to be at 3. They knew that it was going to be one of 3 quarterbacks, though. It was going to be Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, or Trey Lance. And they told themselves, they convinced themselves, we love all 3. Of course, they love more, 2 of those quarterbacks probably more than the other. But look, doesn't matter. One of them's going to be here, and we're cool with whatever one drops to us. They knew Trevor Lawrence wasn't going to be there, but they was like, maybe, just maybe the Jets like Trey Lance. They knew they were taking Zach Wilson, and they were cool with Trey Lance, right? The Patriots, they don't have no choice. They're going to have to be the same way. Because if the Bears stay at 1, they're taking Caleb Williams. If we stay at 2, we have the pick then to say Drake May or Jaden Daniels. And then whatever we decide, they just got to adjust to whatever we decide. And then if they feel good with that guy that's left, they take him, which they're probably going to do regardless. It's better than the shit they got now. They ain't got no choice. So there's definitely a bidding war if the Bears make this pick available. You could even argue that if we didn't have a preference between Jaden Daniels and Drake May, if we didn't have a preference, you could even argue we could trade back to 3 with the Patriots because the Patriots could have a preference. And we could say either you come up here and take the quarterback that you want, or we going to take a quarterback and you just left with whatever we take, whatever we don't take, rather. Do you want to do? Because they may love one of the quarterbacks. They may say, hey, we want Jaden Daniels. We don't want no parts of Drake May. Well, you use that against them. Hey, I'll take Jaden Daniels. You either come up here and get him or I'm going to take him. That means we cool with either one. The Patriots not. Now, if the Patriots like, yo, we cool with all 3. We ain't giving you shit. You go ahead and make your pick. No matter what you do, we straight. We know we getting one of them. Then you can't use that against them. But if they really want one of the 3, or the 2 that's left after the Bears take Caleb Williams, you can use that against them and maybe force them to give you something to get their quarterback. But that's some next level shit, right? Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. CD, OG, triple OG, right? Unless Quinn is ready to promote Harris, the Cowboys can block any move unless whoever Dallas brings in as DC on their staff Let's hope so. And that's why I said, unless Dallas and the next dude they bring in as their DC, if they don't promote from within, which I think they'd be smart to do, is promote from within. But if they don't, they bring a guy from the outside. Dallas, Jerry Jones could still say, you could bring in whoever you want as your, to coach this defense with you, but you keeping Al Harris as the defensive backs coach. He's not going anywhere. And that DC will be like, that's fine, whatever. I'm not tripping over that. So, somebody had already told me that there's no way to bring Al Harris here if he's not the DC without Dallas having the opportunity to block, which I kind of figured that. I was hoping that you could like offer him some like associate head coach. I don't know if that's something they would be interested in doing. They don't want him that bad, right? But like maybe pass game coordinator or something gets him that title that is slightly above defensive backs coach or something, but I don't think it is. You'd have to make him a DC. And clearly we have that guy already. And I want Joe Witt Jr. more than I want Al Harris. So Tizzy Bang, been a member for 28 months. Writes, I think we go offense with 4 or 5 of our top 100 picks, filling out the defense with free agents. Don't want to trade. Just give us Jaden Daniels. I was listening to somebody, I don't know, this might have been another Miss Perry special. I'm not sure if it was or not. No, you know what? It was in the Discord. If you're not a member of the Cherry Squad, I'm telling you, you need to get in this Discord, man. Cherry Squad is where it's at. And I want to say, shout out to my guy Mega. He had cut a little clip. And I want to say it was former Jets head coach Eric Mangini, who had come from the Patriots. I want to say he was talking about the difference between an offensive and defensive minded head coach. And, all we hear about is all the negatives for a defensive minded head coach. Eric Mangini, of course, is a defensive minded guy. He was a head coach. So he was speaking from a position of experience. And he was like, here's the thing that, and I've been trying to explain this to y'all, but it was good to hear somebody actually articulate this and make me feel like, okay, I wasn't just making up some shit. He pretty much said, when you hire a defensive-minded head coach, you're more likely to spend your draft resources on the other side of the football, the high-level picks at least, because you're willing to take the late-round guys, you're willing to take the undrafted guys, you're willing to take the free agents, etc., on defense because you feel like you can give me whatever, I'll make it work. Because that's that athletic arrogance that I talk about. That's that ego kicking in. Like, don't worry, I got this shit. That's why I said, if you're a defensive guy like Mike McDonald, for instance, you're more likely to take the Seattle job. Why? Because that cake was already baked on offense. They got all the offensive talent you could ask for, other than quarterback. But Geno ain't minced meat. He ain't chopped liver, but he definitely ain't no gourmet steak. However, the offense is already built. It's ready to go. The defense has some talent, a lot of it to work with, but it needs some work. But guess what? As a defensive dude, you like, I can fix that. I'm good. I got it. And so Eric Mangini was pretty much saying, if you bring in a defensive-minded head coach, he's going to spend all the resources you need on offense because he wants to give you everything you need to make sure that side is good, because he don't want no excuses from that side, because he already know, I'm going to take care of this defensive side. I'm going to have that shit ready. You just make sure you got no excuses. I'm going to give you everything you need. So that's another way to look at it. We'll see what happens. Abel Ambrosio, my guy, Double A. Thank you for being a member for 15 months. Who writes, I see a Super Bowl coming in a few years. Future is bright. Whoa. Don't start using the SBs now, okay? Calm down. However, I like that we can start even having ideas of grandeur like that. When Dan was here, that was blasphemous to even utter the word Super Bowl and our name in the same sentence. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I couldn't even see that shit. I couldn't even see a scenario. Now I can. Now, we still got a long ways to go before I can actually start talking out of pocket, using that term and our name in the same sentence and not referencing something from 35, 40 years ago. But that actually exists. There's actual thoughts in my mind like, bro, we actually could do this shit now. We're a stable organization. We got a shot. Like everybody else. What a concept. And to think this is all it would take was us to just have a shot. We'll see. But we're stable now. We're stable. This feels good, doesn't it? Feels good, doesn't it? Feels good, feels good. It does. It does feel really good. Now, you know what feels even better, though? Winning. Don't know when that's coming. But I think that's the next step. Let's finish filling out this staff. Let's get to free agency. Let's get to the draft. And then we can kind of see where we are after the dust settles and the smoke clears. And then we'll really start to be able to take inventory of what has actually been done. And then that's when I'm going to get really excited. Right now, the win total is somewhere in that 5 to 7 range for me. No matter what happens, 5 on the low end, 7 on the high end. Kill this offseason from a personnel standpoint, players, et cetera, and who knows? Excitement level goes through the roof, and then I might start talking crazy. You know how I do. I won't be talking, 11, 12 win crazy this year. Not happening. I can assure you of that. It'll be hard for me to see a path to double-digit wins. But I might get crazy enough where I'm talking 8 or 9. That a lot would have to happen, and I'd have to be like really impressed with how we've looked, and everything has to be like on the up and up in the preseason and all of that for me to get to that high of a win total. We're going to play a tough schedule this year. We're playing the AFC North. I don't know what division we're playing in the NFC. I could probably guess, though. We played the NFC West this year. Last year, the year before, we played the NFC North. So we're playing the NFC South this year. So that does change a little bit, right? You could theoretically handle that division, but that division could also get better. We thought the AFC South would suck, and look, that division was really good this year. So you just don't know. You don't know. We'll see. Anyway, future feels bright, but we'll see what happens. All right. Frankie, thank you for being a member for 21 months. Almost at that 2-year threshold. Really appreciate you. Who writes, people talking Super Bowl in the near future. I'm just trying to see us not get swept in the division, laughing my ass off. Right. Like, people be skipping steps, right? I'm here for the baby steps. Like, let's start commanding respect in the division. Let's start threatening to make the playoffs. Let's start threatening double digit. Let's take our time now. I know you're excited, but let's not skip steps here. Right? There's an order as to how these things work. Now, this is a league in which you are allowed to skip steps. But generally speaking, when you're doing a full rebuild, which is what we're commencing and what we're participating in, a full rebuild, top to bottom. I'm talking ownership, everything. This shit is all brand new. Hard to see all of that translate into, 10, 11 wins in year one. Let's just, like you said, let's start looking for the small victories. And on the way, if you hit enough small victories, you'll get to a big one, right? But let's set all of these small little landmarks. And if you hit enough of the small ones, you'll hit a big one. That's what I'm looking to do. Setting a bunch of small ones, and then hopefully all of those little ones will lead to the first big one. Mario Delcit, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mario writes, my bro, Lou, I don't know, but if we draft a QB regardless, I feel Sam will rise up. NHO. I know DQ will fix the defense because we got the pieces to be successful. HTTC. If we draft a quarterback, it could turn into a Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers situation. I would welcome that because then you're pushing both quarterbacks and you're getting the best out of both quarterbacks. But remember what ultimately happened in that Drew Brees, and that's a rare situation, by the way. And that's a different era of NFL football, but still remember what ultimately happened. Now, Drew Brees did injure his shoulder, but they were going to move on from him anyway. It was always going to be Phillip Rivers' show. The shoulder injury just made it easier for them to do it. Okay? Remember, the guy that you draft always wins. See Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Okay? At some point, they knew they had to move on from Aaron. Why? Because they drafted Jordan Love in the first round. And you're not going to just allow a young quarterback you drafted in the first round to sit there and rot and end up on another team. You're right. Same thing happened with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. The young quarterback that you drafted in the first round always wins out. No matter how good that guy that was there prior is playing, the young guy is always going to get that opportunity. So, again, that's just how it goes. Trey Lance was going to get the opportunity in San Francisco until he got injured again. That's what opened up the opportunity for Brock Purdy. But they were going to trade. They tried to trade Jimmy Garoppolo that offseason, if you recall, and they couldn't trade him because he had shoulder surgery and no team wanted to trade for him. And so they had to hold on to him. Good thing they did because Trey Lance got hurt early in the season again, and Garoppolo had to come in, stabilize the situation. Then he got hurt, and then Brock Purdy took over, and the rest is history. The young guy is always going to get an opportunity. So whether Sam is the better of the two quarterbacks this year or not, doesn't matter. The young guy is going to get an opportunity at some point because that's how it works. I got to ask you a question before we get out of here. This was the last super. Did you see the picture of Sam and Drake May at the Duke Carolina game over the weekend? Did you see the picture of those two there? Boy, did Sam look like a shrimp next to Drake May. Golly, the size difference was startling. Damn, I was like, is Drake May 6'8" or is Sam 5'8"? Which one is it? Sam looked like he was about 5'9", and Drake May looked like he was about 6'7". I know I'm exaggerating, but damn, there was a stark contrast in size there. Height, pause. I was blown away. Pause again. Wowzers. Anyway, I digress. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB once again, who writes, I'm going to come back to this question at a later date after you check out the two quarterbacks and play it too. And the question is, do you like or love the guys as the franchise QB? And you know, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you how I feel. You probably won't even have to come back to that question. I'll tell you how I feel. I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to, straddle the fence. When it comes to draft prospects, I'm pretty animated. And I usually am very decisive on what I've seen and what I believe. Doesn't mean I'm right. I've been wrong many a times, and I'll be wrong many more. But I'm usually pretty decisive, and I feel how I feel. So I'll let you guys know. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on a special edition of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I really appreciate y'all joining me on this impromptu show. We got some news Sunday night. You know how that goes. We knew this was a potential situation. When we heard how rapidly things were moving on Saturday, the man literally turned the Raiders down at like Saturday at 10 in the morning, and by like noon or 1, this man was like at the top of the candidate pool, candidacy list of OCs. And then we later found out that he had already interviewed with Dan Quinn, which led me to believe Quinn already had the job and knew what he was doing. He was already lining up candidates and stuff like that. So, anyway, I digress. Mario Delsit, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, all I want to do is win. Laughing my ass off, bro. I've said this a million times. That's all any of us want to do is win, bro. Like, that's the only language that's universal within the fan base. Everybody's speaking different languages. None of that shit makes sense to people that don't speak that same language. You talking that Sam Howell shit, that's like gibberish. You might as well be speaking French if you talking that Sam Howell shit to somebody that wants Caleb Williams or somebody who wants Drake May or Jaden Daniels. That's a whole different language, right? But everybody understands winning. That shit's universal. Everybody understands that. That's where we at. Everybody wants to win. That's abundantly clear. And that's not hard to understand. So you're not alone. And I'd say that you could probably speak for the entire fan base with that statement. We all want to win, man. That's what it's all about. Getting excited about these moves, the reason you get so excited is because you think it's going to lead to winning consistently, sustained success. That's why you get excited about these moves. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, y'all enjoy the rest of your evening. I was going to come chop it up with y'all tomorrow morning. Don't need to do that now because a lot of stuff I was going to say tomorrow morning, I just said it now. So ultimately, I think what I'll do is I'll come back and we'll kick it tomorrow night. So I won't be live right after the presser. I think I'll just save my thoughts for a live show that night. Unless something crazy happens, then I'll be live. But I don't expect it. I'll take in the presser just like everybody else will. And then we'll react to it tomorrow evening. Unless I'm like totally blown away and I'm like, I got to jump on right now, which I, again, don't see that happening. So got some announcements, got some things to let y'all know, and I'll do all of that tomorrow night, more likely than not. So you guys make sure you tune in tomorrow night. Watch the presser. We'll be talking about that. That's all we'll really be talking about tomorrow night, and whatever else you guys want to talk about. And if anything else comes out or, some interesting things get said, there may be another discussion and some more dialogue, but y'all know what it is. Until then, y'all have a good one. Take care. God bless. And good night.